The moment we pulled into our driveway after 2 weeks in Hawaii, I knew something was wrong. The curtains in our front window had been changed to a gaudy floral pattern I would never choose, and there was an unfamiliar car parked in our spot. My stomach dropped as I recognized it, my mother-in-law's Mercedes. I'm Emily Walker, and this is the story of how my mother-in-law attempted to steal our house, only to discover she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. Maybe she's just visiting? My husband Tom suggested weakly, though the moving truck in front of our house suggested otherwise. We'd given our spare key to our neighbor Mrs. Chen for emergency purposes, but somehow Diana, my mother-in-law, had gotten hold of it. As we approached our front door, we could hear voices inside and the sound of furniture being moved. "Oh good, you're finally home." Diana threw open the door before we could even use our key. She was wearing an apron and had clearly made herself at home. I'd been redecorating. This place desperately needed a woman's touch. I bit back a retort about already being a woman and this being my house. Behind Diana, I could see that our living room had been completely transformed. Our modern, minimalist furniture had been replaced with ornate antiques and busy patterns that looked like they belonged in a Victorian bed and breakfast. "Mom," Tom said carefully, "what's going on? Why are you here?" "I've moved in," she announced cheerfully. "Surprise. And don't worry about thanking me, the improvements I've made to this shabby little house are thanks enough." Tom and I exchanged shocked looks. We'd bought this house a year ago, carefully saving and planning to make it our perfect home. It was a beautiful craftsman-style bungalow that we'd spent months renovating ourselves. There was nothing shabby about it. "Diana," I said as calmly as I could, "you can't just move in without asking. This is our house." Her smile turned sharp. "Actually, dear, it's 50% my house now. I've invested quite a bit in improving it." "What are you talking about?" Tom demanded. Diana pulled out a folder with what looked like receipts. "I've spent $5,000 on new furniture and decorations. That makes me a significant investor in this property, and since I've already moved in and established residency, I have legal rights." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. This woman thought she could buy her way into ownership of our home with some tacky furniture? "Mom, that's not how property ownership works," Tom tried to explain. "You can't just..." "Oh, can't I?" She cut him off. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. He says that since I've invested in the property and established residency, I have a legal claim. Besides, where else am I supposed to go? I sold my condo." This was news to us. Diana had lived in an upscale condo in the city for the past 20 years. As far as we knew, she loved it there. "You sold your condo? Why?" I asked. "Because I'm getting older. I need my family around me, and since you two selfishly refuse to give me grandchildren, the least you can do is give me a home." Tom and I had been married for 3 years. Our decision not to have children was a constant source of conflict with Diana, who seemed to think her son's only purpose in life was to provide her with grandchildren. "Diana," I said firmly, "you need to leave. This is our house, and we didn't invite you to live here." Her face darkened. "I'm not going anywhere. I've already changed my address and had my mail forwarded here. I'm a legal resident now." "Mom," Tom's voice had an edge I'd never heard before, "get out of our house." "Thomas Richard Walker," Diana gasped. "How dare you speak to your mother that way, after everything I've sacrificed for you?" "Sacrificed?" Tom laughed bitterly. "You mean like when you tried to stop our wedding? Or when you told Emily's parents she was infertile at our rehearsal dinner?" I put a hand on Tom's arm, trying to calm him. "Let's call the police," I suggested quietly. "Let them handle this." "Go ahead," Diana smirked. "I'll tell them how my cruel son and his barren wife are trying to make their poor mother homeless. I'm sure that will look wonderful in the local paper." What Diana didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I was prepared for something like this. You see, I'm a real estate attorney specializing in property disputes. I'd seen enough family drama in my professional life to take precautions in my personal life. "Give me a moment," I said, walking to our home office. Behind Diana's back, Tom gave me a questioning look. I winked at him. When I returned, I was carrying a thick folder of my own. "Before we call the police," I said pleasantly, "let me show you something, Diana." I pulled out several documents as Diana watched with smug confidence. "This is our deed, showing that Tom and I are the sole owners of this property. This is our mortgage agreement. This is our homeowner's insurance policy. And this," I paused for effect, "is the restraining order I filed 6 months ago when you tried to break into our house the first time." Diana's face went white. "What? There was no restraining order." "Actually, there was. Remember when you tried to climb through our bathroom window while we were at work? Our security cameras caught everything. The judge was very interested in that footage." Tom looked shocked. I hadn't told him about this because I knew how much it would hurt him, but after Diana's previous attempts to interfere in our lives, I'd started documenting everything and taking legal precautions. The restraining order states that you cannot enter our property without our explicit permission, I continued. By moving in while we were away, you've violated that order. That's a criminal offense. You're lying, Diana sputtered. I never received any restraining order. I pulled out another document. Here's the proof of service, signed by you on March 15th. And here's a copy of the security footage from that day, showing you accepting the documents and then throwing them in a public trash can. The judge wasn't happy about that either. Diana's face had progressed from white to gray. Thomas, she pleaded, turning to her son, you can't let her do this to me. I'm your mother. But Tom had found his spine. No, Mom, you're a manipulative person who's trying to steal our home. Emily's right, we're calling the police. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Mrs. Chen, our observant neighbor, had already called them after seeing the moving truck and strange activity at our house. When the police arrived, Diana tried to argue that she was a legal resident who had invested in the property. The officers just looked at the restraining order, then at her. Ma'am, one officer said firmly, you need to leave now. You can have someone collect your furniture later, but if you don't exit the property immediately, we'll have to arrest you. But my furniture, my investment, Diana protested. The furniture you brought here without our permission? I interjected. The furniture that's actually damaging our floors because you didn't use proper protectors? We'll be sending you a bill for the repairs. By the way, Diana left that day in the back of a police car, screaming about ungrateful children and legal revenge. Her furniture was removed by a moving company, at her expense, and our floors had to be refinished where her heavy antiques had scratched the hardwood. But that wasn't the end of the story. Over the next few weeks, Diana launched a campaign of harassment. She called Tom's workplace so often they had to block her number. She posted lies about us on social media. She even tried to contact my law firm's clients to spread rumors about my professional integrity. What she didn't know was that I was documenting everything. A month after the moving incident, we received notice that Diana was suing us for the value of her investment in our home. She claimed that by purchasing furniture specifically for our house, she had acquired an ownership interest in the property. The judge took one look at my documentation, the restraining order, the security footage, the evidence of harassment and dismissed her case. But then he did something unexpected. He asked to see all the evidence of her ongoing behavior. Mrs. Walker, he addressed Diana sternly, your actions show a pattern of harassment and attempted property theft. I'm extending the restraining order indefinitely and adding specific provisions about contact through third parties. One more violation and you'll face criminal charges. Diana burst into tears, playing the role of the heartbroken mother. I just wanted to be close to my son. Is that such a crime? No, the judge replied, but breaking and entering, violating a restraining order, and attempted property fraud are crimes. Consider yourself warned. Tom was quiet on the drive home from court. Finally, he spoke. I'm sorry, Emily. I should have seen this coming. Mom's always been controlling, but I never thought she'd go this far. I squeezed his hand. It's not your fault. Some people just can't respect boundaries. I know, but she's getting worse. What if she doesn't stop? He was right to be concerned. Diana's next move proved that she had no intention of respecting the judge's warning. 2 weeks after the court hearing, we received a letter from Adult Protective Services. Diana had reported us for elder abuse, claiming we had stolen her money and forced her out of her home. She had conveniently forgotten to mention that she was only 55 and quite capable of taking care of herself. The APS investigator who came to our house was thorough but fair. I provided all our documentation, including the court records and restraining order. When she learned that Diana had sold her own condo voluntarily and tried to force her way into our home, the investigator closed the case immediately. But Diana wasn't done. Her next attempt was almost clever. She tried to claim she had dementia and therefore wasn't responsible for her actions regarding the restraining order. She wanted the court to assign Tom as her guardian, which would have given her a legal reason to live with us. The doctor she saw for a competency evaluation wasn't fooled. Diana was perfectly competent. She was just manipulative and entitled. Each failed attempt made her more desperate. She started telling family members that Tom was being held hostage in an abusive marriage. She claimed I had tricked him into buying the house and was now forcing him to abandon his poor mother. Most of the family saw through her lies, especially after Tom showed them the security footage of her breaking in and the documentation of her harassment. But a few flying monkeys took her side, leading to some awkward family gatherings. The final straw came when Diana tried to refinance our house using forged documents. She had somehow obtained copies of our personal information and attempted to take out a home equity loan in our names. Fortunately, the bank's fraud department caught it immediately. The signatures were obviously forged, and Diana's desperation had made her sloppy. She had listed herself as a co-owner of the property, which a simple title search disproved. This time, she faced criminal charges for attempted mortgage fraud. The district attorney offered her a deal: no jail time if she agreed to psychological counseling and moved at least 100 miles away. She took the deal, but not before making one last attempt to guilt Tham into stopping the prosecution. "I'm your mother," she wailed during her last court appearance. "How can you let them do this to me?" Tom's response was calm but firm: "You did this to yourself, Mom. Every time you had a chance to respect our boundaries, you chose not to. Every time you could have backed down, you escalated instead. This is the consequence of your choices." Diana moved to Florida, where she presumably found new victims for her manipulation. She still sends Tom guilt-tripping emails occasionally, but he's learned to delete them unread. We changed all our locks, installed a better security system, and finally got our house back to the way we wanted it. The scratches in the floor from Diana's furniture adventure became a funny story we tell at parties after the restraining order was in place and we felt safe again. 3 years have passed since Diana's attempted takeover of our home. Tom and I are stronger than ever, having weathered this storm together. He went through therapy to deal with his childhood trauma and learned to set healthy boundaries with his mother. Our house has become a true sanctuary, filled with the minimalist decor we love and, more importantly, peace. We still don't want children, but we did adopt 2 rescue cats who love lounging in the sunbeams through our tastefully curtained windows. Diana's attempts to gain control of our lives taught us valuable lessons about protecting ourselves legally and emotionally. I've started teaching workshops for newlyweds about property rights and family boundaries, using our story, with names changed, as a cautionary tale. The security cameras that caught Diana's break-in attempts now mostly capture deliveries and our cats' amusing antics, but we keep them maintained, just in case. Some people never truly change, but we can change how prepared we are for their schemes. One unexpected outcome of this ordeal was how it affected our relationships with other family members. Those who sided with Diana showed us who they really were: people who would enable toxic behavior rather than face uncomfortable truths. Tom's relationship with these relatives changed fundamentally. He realized that anyone who would support his mother's attempted theft of our home wasn't someone he could trust in his life. My law firm now specializes in helping people protect themselves from family members trying to claim property rights. Diana's case, while extreme, isn't unique. Many people face similar situations with entitled relatives who think family connections give them property rights. I've developed a comprehensive checklist for homeowners to protect themselves from family property fraud. It includes everything from proper security measures to legal documentation of ownership and boundaries. Tom's journey to overcome his mother's manipulation was difficult but transformative. Through therapy, he learned that her behavior wasn't about love, it was about control. Her attempt to steal our house was just the most dramatic example of her lifelong pattern. We've created new family traditions with the relatives who stood by us, building a chosen family based on respect and healthy boundaries. Our home has become a gathering place for people who understand that love doesn't mean ownership. Sometimes I think about Diana in her Florida condo, probably plotting her next scheme, but her power over us is gone. We've built something she can never take away: a strong partnership and a peaceful home protected by both legal documents and emotional boundaries. The floral curtains she hung in our front window became a symbol for us. We donated them to a thrift store and replaced them with simple, elegant panels that match our style. Every morning when I see them, I'm reminded that our home is truly ours, protected not just by locks and legal papers, but by our determination to live life on our own terms. Diana's attempt to claim our house taught us that sometimes the biggest threats to our peace come from those who claim to love us most, but it also showed us that with proper preparation, documentation, and a united front, we can protect ourselves from even the most determined manipulators. Our house isn't just a building, it's a testament to our strength as a couple and our right to live free from toxic control. Every room holds memories of our victory over manipulation, and every day we spend here is a reminder that love doesn't require surrender. Sometimes the best revenge against someone who tries to steal your peace is simply living well in the space they couldn't take from you.
Hello, my name is Christina Davis, and this is the unbelievable story of how an old, forgotten farm, left to rot for 18 years, completely transformed my life. Once seen as the family's disappointment, I ended up becoming the one person none of my greedy relatives could ignore. It's funny how sometimes the most valuable things are hidden in places that others consider worthless. I remember the day of the will reading as if it had just happened. The air inside the old law office was thick and heavy, with dark wooden walls that made everything feel tenser. I sat quietly, surrounded by family members who looked more interested in money than memories. Mr. Justin, our longtime family lawyer, sat behind a polished desk. He cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses before opening the envelope that held my parents' final wishes. My heart pounded as he started to read. My parents had both died suddenly in a tragic car accident, leaving behind an estate worth over $110 million. I assumed, like everyone else, that it would be split evenly between my older sister Janet and me. To our beloved daughter Janet, Mr. Justin began, we leave our investment portfolio, the family mansion, and all liquid assets. Janet smiled smugly, her lips painted perfectly, her head held high as if she'd already known she'd win. The jewels on her wrists sparkled as she crossed her arms in satisfaction. Then Mr. Justin looked at me. His voice softened. To Christina, we leave Grandpa Davis's farm property in Wyoming, including all buildings and belongings within. The room went completely silent. Then, suddenly, Janet laughed out loud. A sharp, mocking sound that echoed through the room. A farm, she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder and clinking her designer bracelet. Of course. Little Christina always liked digging in the dirt more than going to galas. I sat frozen. Grandpa's farm? The same 332-acre property that had been abandoned for 18 years since he passed away? I remembered Dad calling it useless, a lost cause. He never even wanted to set foot on it again. Now it was my only inheritance. There must be a mistake, said Aunt Maria, frowning. Jacob and Teresa wouldn't leave their daughter with just dirt. Mr. Justin remained calm. I'm sorry, but the will is clear. The entire farm, including all structures and contents, belongs to Christina. Janet stood up in her expensive designer dress, brushing invisible dust off her skirt. Well, sis, she said with a fake smile, enjoy your barns and chickens. I'll be managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio. She paused at the door and added with a smirk, don't worry. If you need a loan, I'm sure we can work something out. That's what family's for, right? And just like that, they were gone. I was left sitting in that cold office with nothing but a manila envelope that contained the deed and keys to a rundown farm no one had touched in 18 years. But what no one knew, including me, was that this so-called worthless land was about to become the most valuable thing I'd ever been given. Not just in money, but in freedom, purpose, and strength. Because that dusty old farm had secrets. And one by one, I was about to uncover them. The next morning, I made the long drive to the property that was now mine. When I finally arrived, the place looked exactly like you'd imagine an abandoned farm would, tired and forgotten. The main house stood tall but worn, a 3-story structure with peeling paint and sagging windows that hinted at years of neglect. But it wasn't the house that caught my eye. It was the massive old barn, looming in the distance like it had something to hide. That barn had always been a mystery. My grandfather, Raymond Davis, or Grandpa Davis as I called him, was a brilliant, yet strange man. He made his fortune as a mining engineer before retiring to this isolated patch of land. He spent his final years tucked away in that barn, always working on something, always secretive. My father used to scoff at him, calling him crazy for wasting his brain on junk in the dirt. No one in the family ever took him seriously, except me. I remembered how, as a little girl, I'd sneak into the barn behind him. He'd grin and whisper, "Our little secret." The barn door creaked loudly as I pushed it open, the sound echoing through the empty space. Sunlight slipped through the cracks in the wooden walls, casting streaks of light on piles of old equipment and cobweb-covered shelves. Dust floated in the air like snow, and everything smelled of rust and time. But as I stepped further in, something felt strange. The room didn't seem to match the outside. The space felt bigger than it should have been. That childhood memory tugged at my mind. I remembered Grandpa disappearing behind a hidden door. Everyone thought it was just my imagination, especially after his death. My father barely looked, claiming it was just another one of his dad's fantasies. But I knew better. I walked to the north wall, my heart pounding. My fingers brushed against the wood until I found the right spot. 3 gentle taps. Then I pressed the 5th wooden plank from the bottom. For a moment, nothing happened, then click. A section of the wall shifted inward with a soft groan, revealing a dark staircase leading underground. With shaking hands, I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped into the unknown. The stairs led down to an enormous hidden chamber, untouched by time. My light danced across the room, revealing shelves filled with geological maps, mining charts, and chemical reports. In the center stood a fully equipped testing lab, dusty, but perfectly preserved. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just a workshop. It was a secret research facility. But the thing that truly made my heart stop was the old safe tucked in the corner. The combination came to me instantly, my birthday. Grandpa never forgot it. Inside the safe, wrapped in a cloth, was a leather-bound journal and a small USB drive. The first page of the journal read, "To Christina, the only one who ever bothered to listen." My eyes filled with tears. As I flipped through the pages, I realized the truth. Grandpa hadn't lost his mind. He'd made a discovery that could change the world. Underneath this so-called worthless farm was one of the largest deposits of rare earth elements in the western United States, minerals essential for everything from smartphones to clean energy. And not only had he found it, but he'd also created a groundbreaking method for extracting them. His process was efficient, clean, and unlike anything the industry had seen. The USB drive held digital files of patents already filed, just waiting for someone to act on them. He'd been waiting for me. I stood there, surrounded by proof of a hidden legacy, my hands trembling. The truth hit me all at once. The farm wasn't a burden. It wasn't a mistake.
It was a gold mine.
A multi-billion-dollar treasure disguised as a patch of forgotten land. My grandfather had believed in me when no one else did, and now I had the chance to prove that belief right. I knew one thing for sure. If my family found out what I had discovered, they would stop at nothing to take it from me. Janet would hire the best lawyers money could buy and argue I wasn't capable of managing something this important. She'd claim I was unstable or unfit, anything to grab control of what she believed should have been hers. I couldn't let that happen. Not after everything Grandpa had entrusted me with. I needed to be smart, careful, quiet. That night, I stayed in the dusty old farmhouse. The place creaked with every gust of wind, but I barely noticed. I sat by the fireplace, the journal in my lap, flipping through every single page of Grandpa's notes. His handwriting, once so familiar, now felt like a lifeline. He had poured his heart, his brilliance, and his final hopes into that book, and into me. By morning, I had a plan. I made 5 phone calls that day. First, to a patent attorney I knew from a finance seminar I'd once quietly attended. Then to a mining engineer I'd met years ago at a renewable energy conference. Finally, I called an investment banker I had grown close to during my early days in finance, a field my family had always dismissed as a modest little hobby. "I'm about to show you something that could change the future," I told each of them. "But you have to promise me complete confidentiality." And they did. For the next 7 months, while Janet filled social media with photos of designer gowns, beach resorts, and charity galas, I worked in total secrecy. We transformed the old barn into a high-tech headquarters. The hidden lab beneath it was upgraded with the most advanced equipment money could buy. We brought in some of the brightest minds in engineering, geology, and environmental science. It became a think tank built on my grandfather's vision and my determination to protect it. One night, as we reviewed the final refinements to the extraction process, Dr. Peter, our lead engineer, looked up from his computer and said, "These patents, they're game-changing." Your grandfather's method isn't just efficient, it's clean. He found a way to make rare earth mining environmentally sustainable. Do you know what this means? I did. With the world's growing dependence on rare earth elements for everything from smartphones to wind turbines and electric cars, we weren't just sitting on a resource. We were sitting on a revolution. The demand was only going to rise, and we were the only ones holding the key to unlocking it responsibly. To protect the discovery, I created a network of shell companies and incorporated them under the name Davis Sustainable Resources. Using the savings I'd quietly built over years of frugal living and smart investing, I funded our first operations myself. Every move I made was calculated, no paper trail that could lead back to my family, no public filings that would alert them too soon. Then came Janet's wedding. It was a grand, glittering affair at the family mansion. I almost didn't go, but I knew that skipping it would only raise suspicions. So, I arrived in a simple dress, blending into the sea of designer labels and champagne flutes. "Oh, Christina," Janet gushed as I walked in, her voice sugary and fake. "How's life on the farm?" Her new husband, a hedge fund manager with a too-white smile, chuckled beside her. "It's been educational," I replied with a polite smile. "Actually, I've been meaning to ask, how's the tech sector in your portfolio holding up?" Janet blinked, thrown off by the question. "Fine, I suppose. Why?" I sipped my champagne, keeping my tone casual. "Just curious. I heard the rare earth shortages are starting to affect manufacturers. That usually hits stock prices hard." She looked uneasy. "I haven't checked in a while." "You might want to," I said, already turning away. The next morning, while Janet and her husband flew off for their honeymoon in the Seychelles, we quietly broke ground on our first extraction site. Just 2 weeks later, Davis Sustainable Resources had signed supply contracts with 5 major tech companies. Our name hit the front page of the Wall Street Journal under the headline, "Revolutionary Mining Startup Disrupts Rare Earth Market." My phone didn't stop ringing. Everyone wanted to talk, reporters, investors, and most of all, my family. Our valuation passed $3 billion on our first day of public trading. Janet finally called, her voice sharp and panicked. "Christina, why didn't you tell us? We're family, are we?" I said quietly. I thought I was just the girl who got a patch of dirt for her inheritance. In the weeks that followed, chaos erupted. Janet and Aunt Maria were furious. Their lawyers filed claims, insisting the patents should have been included in the family estate. They accused me of hiding valuable assets, trying to paint me as deceitful and greedy. But I was ready. But Grandpa had planned for everything. Every detail. His will clearly stated that all contents of the farm, including any ideas, inventions, or discoveries made there, belonged solely to me. No room for confusion, no space for challenge. The hidden underground lab, built right on the property, was proof that everything had been developed there. Legally and morally, it was mine. He knew my family well enough to predict how they'd react, and he made sure his wishes couldn't be undone. The final confrontation happened during an emergency family meeting Aunt Maria called. We gathered around the long, polished dining table in the family mansion, the same table where they once laughed at my simple career in finance, mocking me for not chasing status, like the rest of them. Now the air was thick with tension, the sparkle of expensive jewelry doing little to mask the desperation on their faces. "You have to understand," Janet said, her voice shaky, bracelets jingling as she fiddled with her hair. "Dad would have wanted this discovery to benefit the whole family." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out Grandpa's leather journal, flipping to a page I had marked in gold. I read his words aloud, my voice calm and steady. "Dear Christina, I'm leaving you this farm because you were the only one who saw value where others only saw dirt. Your father and sister chased wealth. You chased understanding. That's why you'll succeed where they never could." The room went quiet. No one had anything to say. They couldn't argue with his handwriting. "You know the real difference between us, Janet?" I asked, closing the journal gently. "When you inherited the family fortune, I congratulated you. When I built something with my own 2 hands, You tried to steal it. Janet's smile faltered. We can still work something out. Actually, no. We can't. I stood up holding my head high. But here's some free advice. Invest in green tech. Davis Sustainable Resources is about to announce a major expansion. You might want to read up. I turned and walked away, ready to leave the past behind. But Aunt Maria's voice stopped me at the doorway. Your parents would be ashamed of how selfish you're being. I looked back one final time. No, they'd be ashamed that they never saw what Grandpa did. But that's their loss, just like this company is yours. Today, Davis Sustainable Resources is valued at over $15 billion. We're not just mining, we're rewriting the way the world thinks about natural resources. Our process is clean, sustainable, and efficient. The old, forgotten farm is now a cutting-edge research facility where scientists and engineers from all over the world collaborate. But I kept the barn just as Grandpa left it, hidden door and all, as a reminder of where it all began. Janet? She still reaches out now and then, mostly when she wants something. Just last month, she called about investing in our latest venture. I had my assistant kindly refer her to the public investor inquiry line. The family mansion, once a symbol of their pride, went up for sale not long ago. Years of bad investments and an extravagant lifestyle had finally caught up with Janet. I quietly bought it through a shell company and transformed it into a science learning center for underprivileged youth, giving the next generation a chance to see value where others might overlook it. Yesterday, I received an invitation to speak at my old high school's graduation. The topic? Finding value in unexpected places. I accepted immediately. I already knew exactly what I'd say, because I had lived it. These days, I still live on the farm, in Grandpa's old house, now beautifully restored, but full of its original soul. Every morning I walk to the barn, tap that familiar panel, and smile as the secret door swings open. I remember the man who looked past appearances, who believed in something bigger, in the land, in the future, and me. They say success is the best revenge. But I've learned it's not really about revenge at all. It's about showing, through actions and results, that true worth isn't found in what you're handed. It's in what you create. Sometimes, the most valuable thing you inherit isn't money or property. It's the wisdom to see potential where others only see failure. And that kind of vision? That's priceless.
The last time I saw my sister Meredith, she was smirking at me across our parents' mahogany dining table while my mother sobbed into her napkin. I always knew you'd amount to nothing, my father had just finished saying, his words hanging in the air like poison. I'm jailer, and that night 5 years ago was the last time I let my family make me feel small. Sweetheart, we just want what's best for you, my mother Hope managed between theatrical sniffs. If you'd just listened to Meredith about the job at her firm. The entry-level admin position, I cut in, my voice steadier than I felt. The one where I'd be fetching her coffee. Meredith's perfect smile didn't waver. Everyone has to start somewhere, little sister. Some of us just start higher than others. The familiar knot in my stomach tightened. I'd lived in Meredith's shadow for 26 years, watching her collect accolades while I collected criticisms. Every achievement of mine was measured against hers and found wanting. Every mistake became family legend. I already have a job, I said quietly. I'm doing well at the tech startup. Playing with computers, my father Glenn interrupted, swirling his whiskey. Meanwhile, your sister is running charitable organisations, making real differences in people's lives. Making differences in her bank account, you mean? I muttered. The silence that followed was deafening. Meredith's smile finally cracked. What exactly are you implying? She hissed. Before I could respond, my mother jumped in. Jailer, apologise to your sister right now, after everything she's done for you? Done for me? I laughed, and it sounded foreign even to my ears. What exactly has she done except ensure I never forgot my place? That's enough, my father slammed his glass down. You've always been jealous of Meredith's success. If you spent half as much time working as you do complaining. I work 60 hours a week, I said, standing up. I'm leading development on a major project, but you've never once asked about it, have you? Sit down, my mother ordered. We're not finished. Actually, we are. I grabbed my purse. I'm done being the family disappointment. I'm done watching you worship Meredith while treating me like I'm broken. I'm just done. Meredith's voice dripped with fake concern. Mum, Dad, she's just having another one of her episodes. Remember that time in high school when... Goodbye, I cut her off, walking toward the door. Don't try to contact me. If you walk out that door, my father called after me, don't expect any help when you fail, and you will fail. I paused in the doorway, looking back at them one last time. My mother's mascara-streaked face, my father's rigid disapproval, and Meredith's satisfied smirk. They looked exactly as they always had, a perfect family portrait with one glaring imperfection. Me. Watch me, I said, and closed the door behind me. 5 years passed. 5 years of silence, of building something they couldn't diminish, of becoming someone they wouldn't recognize. 5 years of peace, until my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Presley this morning. Hey, stranger, you're not going to believe this, but Grandma Emery's 80th birthday party is next month. The whole family's coming. Meredith's organising everything, and she's planning something wild. She's been asking about you. A lot. I stared at the message, my coffee growing cold beside my laptop. Through my office window, I could see the city skyline, the same view that had graced magazine covers featuring my company, the same view my family would never believe I owned. Another message from Presley popped up. You should come. Show them who you are now. My finger hovered over the delete button, but something stopped me. Maybe it was time. Time to show them exactly who Jayla Francis had become while they weren't watching. My phone buzzed again, a news alert this time. Tech innovator makes Forbes 30 under 40. My own face stared back at me from the screen, though I'd insisted they use my middle name for the article. My family never read tech news anyway. I thought of Meredith, so desperate to know what I'd been doing, planning something wild for Grandma's party. My sister always did love a good show. Well, I murmured to myself, let's give her one. I typed a quick reply to Presley. Tell me more about this party. Someone's been poking around your socials, Hugh said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. And I don't mean the usual tech journalists. I minimised the quarterly reports on my screen. Let me guess, my sister? Not directly. Hugh leaned forward, lowering his voice despite us being alone in my office. But that cousin of yours, the chatty one who messaged you about the party, she told me Meredith's been showing everyone pictures of you outside some luxury condo in Manhattan. Interesting, considering I've never posted anything about where I live. Exactly. Hugh had been my right hand since the startup days, back when we were coding in a basement. He knew everything, including why I kept my success hidden from my family. She hired someone, Jayla, a PI. I felt a familiar chill, the same one I used to get before family dinners. You're sure? Remember Marcus from IT security? His wife works for an investigations firm. She overheard your sister's name mentioned in a briefing. My phone buzzed. Another message from Presley. OMG, Jay, you have to hear what Meredith just told everyone in the family group chat. She says you've been lying about everything. Says she has proof you're not who you say you are. I showed Hugh the message. He whistled low. She's trying to set you up for something big at that party. Let her try. I stood up, walking to the window. 15 floors below, people looked like ants scurrying between skyscrapers. She wants to expose me. Fine, but she might not like what she finds. What are you thinking? Before I could answer, my assistant Sarah buzzed in. Miss Francis, your 2 o'clock is here, the venture capital meeting. Thanks, Sarah. Hugh, we'll finish this later. He nodded, heading for the door, then paused. Just be careful, okay? I know that look. You're planning something. After he left, I opened my laptop and pulled up my private email. 3 new messages from family members I hadn't spoken to in years, all asking variations of the same question. Was it true? Had I really been pretending to be successful? I clicked delete on all of them. My phone rang, Grandma Emery's number. My finger hovered over decline, but something made me answer. "Hello? About time you picked up." Her voice was exactly as I remembered, sharp, clear, taking no nonsense. "Your sister's telling everyone you're some sort of con artist." "Is she now?" "Don't play coy with me, girl. Are you coming to this party or not?" I hesitated. "Would you want me there?" "Wouldn't ask if I didn't." A pause. Something's not right with all this. Meredith's too excited, like she's planning a public execution instead of a birthday party. Sounds like her. Jailer. Her tone softened slightly. What really happened 5 years ago? Before I could answer, my email pinged. A new message, no subject line, from an address I didn't recognize. Just a photo attachment. I opened it and felt my blood freeze. It was me, walking into my office building yesterday morning, coffee in hand. The angle suggested it was taken from across the street. "I have to go, Grandma. I'll think about the party." I hung up and enlarged the photo. In the corner, barely visible, a watermark. Man Investigations. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from an unknown number. "Interesting career trajectory for someone who was playing with computers 5 years ago. Your sister says hello." I should have felt scared. Instead, I felt something else, something harder, colder, something that had been building for 5 years. I dialed Hugh. "Remember that contact you mentioned? The one whose wife works at the PI firm? I need a meeting. Today." "Jailer?" "They're watching my building, Hugh, taking pictures. If Meredith wants to play detective, fine, but she forgot something important." "What's that?" I looked at the photo again, at my designer suit and the logo of my company clearly visible behind me. I'm not that scared little sister anymore, and I have resources she can't imagine. "What are you going to do?" I thought about Meredith's smirk that last night, about all the time she'd torn me down to build herself up, about the lies she was spreading now, trying to destroy whatever she thought I'd become. "I'm going to let her finish her investigation," I said quietly. "And then I'm going to show her what a real takedown looks like." The truth was coming, all of it, and this time I'd be the one smirking across the table. Fletcher Mann's office looked exactly like you'd expect a private investigator's workspace to look. Weathered leather chairs, filing cabinets, and a desk that had seen better decades. The man himself was a surprise. Crisp suit, sharp eyes, and a demeanour that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. "Miss Francis," he said, not standing. "I assume this is about the surveillance photos." "You assumed right." I sat across from him, matching his posture. "Want to tell me why you're taking pictures of me for my sister?" He studied me for a long moment. "Professional courtesy prevents me from discussing other clients." "Professional courtesy didn't stop you from sending me that photo." A slight smile crossed his face. "Ah, that?" "Yes, that." I leaned forward. "So either you're playing both sides, or something about this case made you reach out. Which is it?" Fletcher opened a drawer, pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Your sister hired me to prove you were lying about your success. She was quite insistent that I'd find evidence of fraud, deception, maybe even criminal activity. And instead I found this." He slid the envelope across the desk. "Take a look." Inside were documents, photos, financial records, my company's valuation reports, pictures of my penthouse, my vacation home in the Berkshires, press clippings about my tech innovations, everything I'd worked for, laid out in black and white. "Impressive portfolio," Fletcher said quietly. "Self-made, clean, legal, the opposite of what your sister wanted to find." "So why show me?" "Because while investigating you, I found something else, something that wasn't supposed to be there." He pulled another thinner envelope from his desk. "This was misfiled in your sister's background documents. I don't think she knows I have it." My hands shook slightly as I opened it. Inside was a single page, a bank statement from Meredith's charitable organisation. Red flags jumped out immediately: irregular transfers, mismatched amounts, funds moving to personal accounts. "Is this what I think it is?" Fletcher nodded. "Your sister's been embezzling from her own charity. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. The investigation into her activities started 3 months ago." "She doesn't know?" "Not yet, but she will." He leaned back. "Here's the thing, Ms. Francis. I don't like being used. Your sister hired me to destroy you, fed me lies about who you were. Instead, I found someone who built something real." My phone buzzed. Another message from Presley. "Meredith's telling everyone she's going to expose you at Grandma's party. Says she has proof you're living a lie." I showed Fletcher the message. He actually laughed. "She's planning to present my report at the party," he said. "Thinks it'll humiliate you, show everyone you're a fraud. But instead she'll be presenting proof of your legitimate success to your entire family." He gestured to the envelopes. "Take them, both of them. Consider it my apology for the surveillance." I stood, gathering the documents. "Why are you really helping me?" "Let's just say I have a sister too." He smiled grimly. "And sometimes karma needs a little push." Outside his office I called Hugh. "Well?" he asked. "It's better than we thought. Meredith's not just trying to expose me, she's going to accidentally expose herself." "What do you mean?" "She's been stealing from her charity, Hugh, and she's about to hand me proof of both my success and her crimes in front of our entire family." A low whistle. "That's poetic justice?" I smiled, thinking of all those family dinners, all those smirks and cutting remarks. "The best part, she's paying for her own downfall." "Want to guess where she got the money to hire Fletcher?" "Don't tell me." "The family trust account, the same one she always said I wasn't responsible enough to access." My phone buzzed again. An email from my mother. "Jailer, please don't come to the party. Don't make things worse than they already are." I deleted it without responding. 5 years ago, I'd walked away from their table feeling broken. This time, I'd walk in knowing exactly who I was, and more importantly, who Meredith really was. "Hugh," I said, sliding into my car, "remember how you said I was planning something?" "Yeah." "I'm not anymore." I looked at the envelopes on my passenger seat. "I'm just going to let Meredith's plan play out exactly as she intended. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people destroy themselves." The party was 2 weeks away. For once I couldn't wait for a family gathering. "Holy shit," Hugh whispered, spreading Fletcher's documents across my office table. "This is comprehensive." I nodded, watching him flip through pages of my life's work. Forbes features, property deeds, company valuations, all of it meticulously documented. Meredith wanted proof. She got it, but not the proof she wanted. Hugh held up a glossy photo of me speaking at a tech conference. This is going to backfire spectacularly. My phone lit up. Another message from Meredith, the first direct contact in 5 years. "Hope you're ready for Grandma's party, little sister. Time to show everyone who you really are." I showed Hugh the message. He snorted. "She has no idea, does she? None." I picked up the second envelope, the one containing Meredith's secrets. But this is the real bomb. We spent the next hour reviewing the charity's financial records. The pattern was clear. Small withdrawals at first, growing larger over time. Money meant for children's programs diverted to personal accounts. Luxury purchases disguised as operational expenses. "Look at this," Hugh pointed to a particular transaction. "She used charity funds to hire Fletcher." "Not just that." I pulled up my banking app. "She also drained 10,000 from the family trust account, the one she manages, on the same day." "Can she do that legally?" "No. It requires all beneficiaries' approval." I laughed darkly. She probably figured I'd never know, since I haven't touched that account in years. My office door opened, and Sarah poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. Meredith just posted something in your family's Facebook group. I pulled it up on my laptop. There it was, a long, seemingly heartfelt post about protecting the family from deception and revealing painful truths. She'd even tagged Grandma Emery. The comments, Hugh said, leaning over my shoulder. Look at them. Dozens of relatives chiming in with support. My mother writing, "It's for the best, sweetheart, she needs help." My father adding, "Some people can't handle the truth." Only one comment stood out, Grandma Emery's. "Careful what truths you dig for, girl. You might not like what you find." Grandma knows something, Hugh said. She always knows something. I closed the laptop. That's why Meredith's doing this at her birthday party. She thinks Grandma's approval will legitimise her attack. My phone buzzed again. Fletcher this time. "Your sister just demanded the final report. Says she needs it for a family presentation. Thought you should know." I typed back, "Let her have it." Hugh raised an eyebrow. "You're really going to let her do this?" "Watch," I said, pulling up the trust account records on my screen. "Meredith's so focused on exposing me, she's getting sloppy. Look at these transfers. She's been stealing for months, thinking no one would notice." "But you did?" "No," I smiled. "Grandma did. 3 weeks ago, she requested an audit of all family accounts. That's what triggered the investigation into Meredith's charity. So when Meredith presents Fletcher's report, she'll be presenting evidence of my success to a grandmother who already knows about her fraud." I leaned back. Sometimes the best revenge is just sitting back and watching. Sarah appeared again. "Miss Francis, the board meeting is in 10 minutes. "Thanks, Sarah." I stood, straightening my jacket. "Hugh, can you finish reviewing these? I want to know every detail before the party." "Sure, but—" He hesitated. "Are you really going to expose her in front of everyone?" I thought about all the times Meredith had humiliated me at family gatherings, all the smirks, the subtle digs, the way she'd positioned herself as the successful sister while painting me as the failure. "No," I said finally, "I'm going to let her expose herself." My phone lit up one last time, a message from Grandma Emery. "Got my party invitation today. Says you're coming. About time, girl. Bring that backbone I know you've grown." I smiled, typing back, "Don't worry, Grandma. I'm not the same person who left 5 years ago." "Good," she replied immediately, "because neither is your sister, and only one of you is going to like how this party ends." Looking at the documents spread across my table, proof of both my rise and Meredith's fall, I knew exactly which one of us that would be. "Hugh," I called as I headed to my meeting, "make sure those documents are somewhere safe. The party's in 10 days, and Meredith's not the only one who knows how to make a presentation." Sometimes karma needs a little help, and sometimes it just needs an audience. The week before Grandma's party, the messages started flooding in. First came my mother's daily guilt trips. "Please reconsider coming. You'll only embarrass yourself." "Why can't you just let Meredith help you?" "We're only trying to protect you from yourself." Delete, delete, delete. I was in the middle of a board meeting when Presley called, 3 times. "You need to hear this," she said, when I finally stepped out to answer. "I just overheard Meredith on the phone with Fletcher. She's planning to do this presentation thing right after Grandma's cake. Says she's going to save the family from your lies or something. Did she mention what lies exactly?" "No, but—" Presley lowered her voice. "She's acting weird, Jay, like manic almost. Keeps checking her bank accounts on her phone. Yesterday she tried to access the trust fund again, but Grandma's locked it down for routine audit purposes." I smiled. "How did Meredith take that?" "She threw her phone across the room." Perfect. The pressure was getting to her. "Thanks, Presley. Keep me posted." Back in my office, Hugh was waiting with more news. "Your sister just tried to get into the building. Security stopped her." "Here?" I walked to the window. 15 floors below, I could just make out Meredith's signature red coat as she stormed to her car. "What did she want?" "To speak with the CEO." Hugh grinned. "Guess she doesn't know that's you." My phone buzzed. A text from Fletcher. "Your sister's getting desperate. Asked me to dig deeper, find something more damaging. I told her the report was final." I was about to respond when another call came in. Grandma Emery. "You busy?" she asked when I answered. "Never too busy for you, Grandma." "Good, because I'm outside your building." I froze. "What?" "Saw your sister making a scene down here. Figured it was time we talked." A pause. "Nice office you've got. Corner suite, I'm guessing." 10 minutes later, Grandma Emery sat across from me, looking exactly as I remembered. Elegant, sharp-eyed, and completely unimpressed by the view that made most visitors gasp. "So," she said, setting down her tea, "this is what you've been hiding." "I wasn't hiding." Save it." She waved her hand. "I've known about your success for months. What I want to know is why you let them think otherwise." I met her gaze. Would they have believed me if I'd told them? "No," she admitted. "They'd have assumed you were lying, just like Meredith does now." She smiled slightly, even though she's seen the proof. "You know about Fletcher's report?" "I know about a lot of things." She pulled out her phone, showed me an email. "Like this audit report on your sister's charity. Interesting reading." "Grandma?" "Don't worry, I won't spoil her big presentation." She stood, straightening her jacket. "Just tell me one thing. Are you ready for this?" "For Meredith's attack?" "No." Her eyes were steel. "For the fallout, because when this is over, nothing in this family will be the same." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a message from my father. "Your mother's in tears over what you're putting Meredith through. I hope you're happy." I showed it to Grandma. She read it and laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, they have no idea what's coming, do they?" She headed for the door, then paused. "Wear that navy suit to the party, the one from your Forbes shoot. It'll look good in the photos." "What photos?" "The ones everyone will be taking when Meredith's presentation backfires." She winked. "I may be turning 80, but I still know how to stage a show." After she left, Hugh came in. "Was that really your grandmother?" "The one and only." She seemed terrifying. I was going to say prepared. My phone buzzed one final time. Meredith. "Last chance, little sister. Back out now, or I'll destroy everything you've pretended to build." I thought about the documents in my safe, about Grandma's knowing smile, about 5 years of silence and strength. "You can't destroy what's real," I typed back. Then I pulled up the party invitation on my screen. 3 days to go. 3 days until Meredith would stand up, thinking she was about to tear me down, only to reveal her own destruction instead. "Hugh," I called out, "clear my schedule for Monday. I've got a birthday party to attend." And a sister to watch self-destruct. The country club ballroom fell silent when I walked in. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips, all eyes turning to watch me enter. I spotted Meredith near the cake table, her face going from smug to shocked as she took in my appearance. The navy suit had the exact effect Grandma predicted. Professional, powerful, expensive. "Jayla?" My mother's voice cracked. How are you?" "Happy birthday, Grandma," I said, ignoring her and walking straight to where Grandma Emery sat in her place of honour. I handed her a small wrapped package. "Right on time," Grandma said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She patted the empty seat beside her. "Sit!" Whispers erupted around the room. This seat, right next to the birthday girl, was supposed to be Meredith's. "That's my place," Meredith said, rushing over. "Mum, tell her." "Let her sit," Grandma cut in. Her tone left no room for argument. "It's my birthday. I'll seat who I want, where I want." I caught my father's eye across the room. He looked away first. The next hour was a symphony of awkward small talk and pointed questions. Relatives I hadn't seen in years suddenly wanted to know everything about my life. I gave them nothing, just smiled and turned their questions back on them. "Enough chit-chat," Meredith finally announced, tapping her glass. "It's time for the special presentation I prepared." She pulled out a thick envelope, Fletcher's report, and moved to the small podium set up near Grandma's chair. "Before we begin," my mother interrupted, "perhaps Jayla should step out." No, Grandma said firmly. Everyone stays. Meredith cleared her throat. As you all know, family means everything to me. That's why it breaks my heart to expose what I'm about to expose. She looked directly at me. Some people have been deceiving us, living lies, pretending to be something they're not. I sat back, relaxed, let her talk. I hired a private investigator, she continued, pride in her voice, to uncover the truth about my sister's supposed success and what he found. Show us, Grandma interrupted. Stop talking and show us what he found. Meredith faltered slightly but recovered. Of course, I'll start with these photos. She pulled out the first one, me entering my office building, the company logo clearly visible behind me. This is where my sister claims to work, she said. A tech company valued at... She stopped, actually reading the paper for the first time. Her face went pale. Go on, Grandma encouraged. What's the company valued at? This can't be right. Meredith shuffled through more papers. These documents show... Show what? I asked quietly. Property deeds, she mumbled. Stock options, board member appointments, Forbes interviews. The room was dead silent now, everyone watching as Meredith's hands started shaking. Read it, Grandma commanded. Read what that investigator found about Jayla. She's the CEO, Meredith whispered. The company. It's hers, all of it. My mother made a choking sound. My father's whiskey glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Keep going, Grandma said. There's more, isn't there? But Meredith had reached the last pages, the ones about her charity. I saw the moment she recognized what she was holding. Her face went from pale to grey. I think there's been a mistake, she stammered. These papers got mixed up. No mistake, I said, standing. Fletcher is very thorough. He documents everything. I pulled out my own envelope, including these bank transfers from the family trust account, the ones you made without approval. You had no right, Meredith shrieked. Those records are private. Like the charity's records? I asked softly. The room erupted in confused questions, relatives demanding explanations, my mother crying again, but for a different reason now, my father trying to reach Meredith, who was backing away from the podium. Enough, Grandma's voice cut through the chaos. She turned to Meredith. You wanted to expose the truth. Well, congratulations, you did. But not the truth you expected, I added. Meredith looked around wildly, seeing the faces of our family transform from shock to understanding to judgment. Then she ran, straight out of the ballroom, leaving her damning presentation behind. Grandma picked up her champagne glass. Well, she said calmly, I'd say this is turning out to be quite the memorable birthday party. She smiled at me. And we haven't even had cake yet. The silence after Meredith's exit lasted exactly 12 seconds before my mother found her voice. This is your fault, she shrieked, pointing at me. You set her up. Did I force her to hire a PI? I asked calmly. Did I make her steal from her charity? There must be an explanation, my father cut in. Meredith wouldn't... Wouldn't what? Grandma Emery's voice cracked like a whip. Wouldn't lie, wouldn't steal, wouldn't try to publicly humiliate her sister. She picked up the scattered papers. The proof is right here, Glenn. Your perfect daughter is a fraud. And your other daughter, Presley spoke up from the back, the one you called a failure, turns out she's the real success story. More relatives chimed in, the tide turning as the truth sank in. Aunt Linda asking about the missing charity funds meant for her daughter's medical treatment, Uncle Robert demanding to know about the trust account transfers, cousins scrolling through their phones, finding my company's website, my interviews, my achievements. All this time, my mother whispered, sinking into a chair, all these years you were... Successful, I supplied, accomplished, everything you wanted Meredith to be? Why didn't you tell us, my father demanded. Would you have believed me? I looked him straight in the eye. 5 years ago you said I'd fail, that I was nothing compared to Meredith. Well, here's the truth, Dad. While she was stealing from children's charities, I was building something real. I need to find Meredith, My mother stood up shakily. She needs me. Sit down, Hope. Grandma's tone froze her in place. For once in your life, face what's in front of you instead of running to Meredith. A commotion at the door drew everyone's attention. Fletcher Mann walked in, holding a folder. Sorry to interrupt, he said, nodding to me. But there's something else you should all know. The police are here. My mother collapsed back into her chair. My father went pale. I was required by law to report the charity fraud once I discovered it, Fletcher explained. They've been building a case for weeks. Right on cue, 2 detectives entered the ballroom. They barely glanced at the birthday decorations as they approached our group. We're looking for Meredith Francis, one said, showing his badge. She left, my mother whispered. We know. We just arrested her in the parking lot. The room exploded again, relatives gasping, my mother sobbing, my father arguing with the detectives. Through it all, Grandma sat calmly, sipping her champagne. Well, she said to me quietly, was it worth the wait? I watched my parents rushing out to find Meredith, watched my relatives huddled in shocked groups, sharing stories of how Meredith had borrowed money or made promises through her charity. I didn't want this, I admitted. I just wanted the truth, Grandma finished, and now everyone has it. She stood up, commanding attention like always. This party's not over. My granddaughter, my successful, honest granddaughter, is finally home, and I want cake. Later, as servers cut the elaborate birthday cake Meredith had ordered, Presley brought me a glass of champagne. That was intense, she said. But you know what's crazy? No one's even surprised about Meredith anymore. They're all talking about you, about how they should have seen it. Seen what? That you were the strong one, the real deal. She clinked her glass against mine. Meredith tried to tear you down and exposed herself instead. That's some karma. My phone buzzed. A text from Hugh. News about your sister's arrest is hitting the business feeds. Want me to handle PR? No, I typed back. Let the truth speak for itself. Jailer? My father's voice made me look up. He stood awkwardly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother and we're going to the police station. But first I need to say... Don't, I cut him off. Save your apologies. They're 5 years too late. He nodded slowly, understanding finally showing in his eyes. You really did it, didn't you? Everything we said you couldn't do. No, I corrected him. Everything you never bothered to see me do. As he walked away, Grandma raised her glass in my direction. Around us, relatives were already shifting, adapting to the new family dynamic, one where Meredith wasn't the golden child and I wasn't the failure. Happy birthday, Grandma, I said, raising my glass in return. She smiled, that knowing smile that suggested she'd seen this coming all along. Oh, sweetheart, this is just the beginning. My office phone rang at 2:43 a.m. The number was blocked, but I knew who it was. Hello, Meredith. A pause, then. How did you know? Because you always did your worst damage in the middle of the night. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city lights. What do you want? I'm out on bail, she said, as if that explained everything. Mum and Dad won't answer my calls. No one will. That tends to happen when you steal from sick children. I didn't. She stopped. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You were supposed to be the failure, the disappointment, not me. Sorry to ruin your narrative. Can't you help me? Her voice cracked. You have money now, influence. You could make this go away. Like you tried to make me go away. Silence. That's what I thought. I stood up, walking to the window. Goodbye, Meredith. Wait! She was crying now. Please, you're my sister. No, I said quietly. I stopped being your sister the day you decided to destroy me instead of accept me. I hung up, just as Hugh knocked on my door. Late night? He asked, noting my expression. Just finishing some family business. I gestured to my laptop. Did you see the email from Grandma? He grinned. The one about her new foundation? Pretty bold move, starting a children's charity to replace Meredith's. even bolder, asking me to be on the board. I showed him the press release draft. She wants to announce it next week. Speaking of announcements, he handed me a tablet. On it was an email from my mother. Subject line, "Please read." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Jailer, your father and I are selling the house. The one we always said you weren't good enough to live up to. The one Meredith was supposed to inherit. We're donating the proceeds to Grandma's new foundation as restitution for what Meredith stole. We don't expect forgiveness. We don't deserve it. But you deserve to know that we finally see you, not as we wanted you to be, but as you are. You won. Not because you proved us wrong, but because you proved yourself right." "Mom, you okay?" Hugh asked softly. Before I could answer, my assistant Sarah buzzed in. "Miss Francis, your grandmother's here." Grandma Emery walked in, impeccable as always. "Good, you're both here. We need to talk about the foundation launch." "At 3 a.m.? She smiled. "Best time for fresh starts?" She sat down, pulled out a folder. "The DA called. Meredith took a plea deal. She's going away for a while." "How long?" "Long enough to learn what it feels like to lose everything." She met my eyes. "Like you did once." "I didn't lose everything," I corrected her. "I left everything. There's a difference." "Yes, there is." She opened the folder. "Now, about this foundation. I'm thinking big. Real change, real help for families in need. No fake charities, no embezzlement, no lies." She looked up at me. "Think you can handle that?" I thought about Meredith's late-night call, about my mother's email, about that dinner 5 years ago when I walked away with nothing but my dignity. "Actually," I said, pulling up a proposal on my laptop, "I have some ideas." Hugh excused himself, leaving me with Grandma to plan something bigger than revenge, redemption. Not for Meredith, not for my parents, but for all the kids who needed what Meredith's charity had promised but never delivered. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Presley. "Family group chat is wild. Everyone's sharing your Forbes article. Even Uncle Robert admitted he was wrong about you. Times really do change." I showed it to Grandma, who laughed. "No, dear, times don't change. People do. Some grow stronger, some show their weakness. You just happened to do the former while your sister did the latter." "And my parents?" "They're learning." She patted my hand. "But that's not your problem anymore. You've got bigger things to build." Looking at the foundation plans spread across my desk, I realized she was right. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't even need their approval. I had something better. The truth. Not just about who I'd become, but about who I'd always been. Stronger than their doubts, bigger than their limitations, and finally, completely free of their shadows. "Ready to change some lives?" Grandma asked, pen poised over the foundation papers. I signed my name, not as Meredith's sister, not as my parents' disappointment, but as exactly who I was meant to be. Always have been.
I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie one final time. My presentation materials were carefully packed, and every detail was double-checked. Tonight wasn't just another family dinner, it was a defining moment. My sister Laura was hosting at her lavish mansion, and I planned to seize the opportunity to prove my worth. For years, I had quietly built my company, Robinson Capital, making smart, strategic investments while staying under the radar. Now, I was ready to present my biggest business venture yet. All I needed was the support of Monarch Bank, the very bank where my brother-in-law, Daniel Taylor, held the powerful title of Executive Vice President. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. 13 years ago, Daniel dismissed my first business idea with a smirk, rejecting my loan application and mocking my vision as nothing more than a childish fantasy. Since then, he never missed a chance to remind everyone how he had saved my sister by marrying into our family and giving her a better life. Every family gathering became his stage, a place to flaunt his status, while making me feel small. Laura greeted me at the door with a polite air kiss on the cheek. The sister who once stood by me, defending me from school bullies, now seemed distant, transformed by wealth and status. "You look very professional," she said, her eyes scanning my modest suit with thinly veiled judgment. "Daniel just got back from Paris. Wait until you see his new French suits." Her words stung more than I expected, not because of the insult, but because it reminded me how far apart we'd grown. The dining room was a showpiece of extravagance. Glittering chandeliers hung from the ceiling, antique-style furniture was placed meticulously around the room, and the walls were lined with paintings that seemed too perfect to be real, likely replicas trying to imitate old-world charm. Daniel sat at the head of the long table like royalty, surrounded by fellow bank executives and their elegantly dressed spouses. He welcomed me with a theatrical grin. Eric, the small business genius graces us with his presence," Daniel announced loudly, prompting laughter from around the table. "Still running that little firm of yours? What was it called again?" "Pigeon Capital." "Robinson Capital." I corrected him quietly as I began setting up my laptop. "Actually, that's why I wanted to speak tonight. I have a proposal I'd like to share." Daniel groaned dramatically and leaned back in his chair, waving his wine glass. "Oh no, not another one of your pitches," he said with a chuckle. "Remember your last idea, honey?" He turned to Laura. "Affordable housing, wasn't it? As if anyone with money wants to invest in that." Laura laughed softly, her smile tight. "Eric, maybe tonight isn't the best time," she whispered, glancing around nervously. But I wasn't backing down. "This project is different. It's a $5 billion development, fully planned, with sustainable housing, retail spaces, and community centers. All we need is funding from Monarch Bank." The room went silent for a moment before Daniel nearly spat out his wine in laughter. $5 billion? He repeated, wiping his mouth. "You've lost your mind. You can barely afford that suit, and now you want to handle billions." More laughter followed, echoing off the expensive walls. I didn't flinch. I looked Daniel in the eye and said calmly, "The numbers work. You just have to look." "I'm telling you, Daniel," I said, opening my laptop and pulling up the presentation. "Just take a look. The numbers speak for themselves." Before I could say more, Daniel slammed his hand down on the dinner table, the silverware rattling from the force. He leaned forward, eyes burning with a familiar condescension. "Do you want to know why you'll never make it, Eric? Why you'll always be stuck chasing small dreams? It's because you don't understand how the world works. Business isn't about helping people or building some noble little community. It's about control, about power. And you, dear brother-in-law, have none." He straightened his expensive French suit and smirked, clearly enjoying the attention of the guests. "Tomorrow morning, I'm giving a presentation to Monarch Bank's board. It's about a real business deal, big money, big acquisitions. The kind of stuff you'll never understand. So, do yourself a favor, stick to your fantasy projects. That's all you're good for." Polite laughter rippled through the room, forced and hollow. Just then, I felt a soft vibration from my phone. I glanced down. A new message from my lawyer lit up the screen. "Transfer confirmed. You now own 53% of Monarch Bank shares. The board meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Ready to meet your new employees?" I looked back at Daniel, still laughing at his joke. I didn't say a word. I simply smiled. Tomorrow was going to be different. The next morning, I walked into the grand lobby of Monarch Bank's headquarters wearing the same off-the-rack suit from the night before. The security guard, who was used to politely turning me away whenever I tried to visit Daniel's floor, blinked in confusion as I walked past with quiet confidence. "Mr. Robinson." A familiar voice called out. It was Evelyn, my lawyer, standing near the elevators, a folder tucked under her arm. Everything set. The board members arrived early. They're excited to hear Daniel's big announcement. She smiled knowingly. They don't know the agenda has changed. For the past 13 years, I have been playing a careful, deliberate game. While Daniel and his friends in high finance laughed at my modest ventures, I was slowly building something much larger. Through Robinson Capital, I created a network of silent partnerships, shell companies, and hidden acquisitions. The businesses I helped rescue from failure became trusted allies, and together, they helped me pull off the unthinkable. "Does anyone suspect?" I asked as the elevator ascended toward the top floor. Not a soul, Evelyn replied. Each shell company appeared completely independent. Even our sources inside Monarch say Daniel is feeling confident. He's planning to announce their takeover of Rivera Banking Group. I smiled. Rivera was another one of my quiet victories, a company I had taken over through discreet deals, now ready to serve a different purpose. The boardroom was as grand as expected: high ceilings, polished mahogany table, walls of marble, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. Daniel stood at the head of the table, basking in the moment, the same smug grin from last night glued to his face. He saw me walk in and raised an eyebrow. "Eric, what are you doing here? This is a closed meeting." Before I could respond, Evelyn stepped forward and calmly placed a folder on the table in front of him. "Actually," she said, her voice clear and professional, "Mr. Robinson has every right to be here." Daniel grabbed the folder and flipped it open, his face tightening as he read. His eyes scanned the page, then froze. His color changed, first red with anger, then pale as shock took hold. "As of 9 o'clock this morning," I said, walking to the table and taking a seat, "Robinson Capital owns 53% of Monarch Bank shares." Silence. Then a burst of chaos. The room erupted as board members reached for their copies of the documents, flipping pages, and whispering frantically to one another. Chairs scraped back. Pens clicked. The controlled order Daniel once commanded had crumbled in an instant. "Impossible," Daniel muttered, his voice shaking, eyes locked on the page in disbelief. But it wasn't impossible. It was just unexpected, and it was only the beginning. "You think we wouldn't have noticed if someone was buying up shares?" Daniel barked, his voice shaking with disbelief. "Would you really?" I replied calmly, turning on the large screen at the front of the boardroom. A presentation appeared, an intricate web of companies, partnerships, and acquisitions. All of them, in one way or another, are connected to Robinson Capital. You were too busy looking down on small businesses to see what was happening. While you chased big deals and flashy headlines, I was bringing together the very people you ignored. Those businesses you thought were beneath you, they came together under one banner, mine. Daniel's face twisted in confusion and denial. "This has to be a trick," he snapped. "The Taylor family has run this bank for generations." "Exactly," I said, stepping forward. "And in that time, you've made reckless decisions, pushed away long-term clients, and prioritized risky expansion over stability. Did you think those clients would just disappear? They came to me. Every small dream you mocked, every so-called unimportant investment, they all added up." The room was silent except for the quiet hum of the projector. Around the table, the board members began to nod slowly as they studied the visual trail of acquisitions. The truth was clear now. While Daniel had been draining the bank's resources with short-sighted ambition, I had built something steady, strong, and loyal. My empire hadn't come from arrogance. It had grown from trust. "You can't do this," Daniel whispered, his voice barely audible now. "Laura, tell him." I turned to face my sister. Yes, Laura is my sister. And maybe now, after everything, she'll remember what that means. I adjusted my off-the-rack suit, standing a little taller. "Oh, and Daniel, there's no need to present that Rivera Banking Group deal. It won't be going through. They already report to me." Right then, the boardroom doors burst open. Laura rushed in, her face pale, her eyes wide with panic. "Daniel," she cried, tears running down her cheeks. "Why, is our account frozen?" I turned to her gently. "That's something we need to talk about, Laura. There are irregularities in Daniel's personal trading accounts. Some very serious ones." Daniel collapsed into his chair, the color draining from his face. The once polished French suit now looked more like a costume than a symbol of success. He stared blankly at the table, whispering to himself, "All those years you were playing us." "No," I said, quietly but firmly. "I wasn't playing anyone. I was running a business. Something you never quite learned to do." The following weeks were a storm of activity: audits, emergency board meetings, and headline-making revelations. What had begun as a calculated takeover swiftly became a full-blown financial scandal. Our team of forensic accountants dug deep into the records, uncovering years of unethical behavior, unauthorized trades, fake profits. Lavish personal expenses are hidden in the books as corporate costs. The once proud Taylor banking dynasty wasn't built on a legacy of strength and honor. It was built on illusion, and that illusion was crumbling fast. One afternoon, I sat in my new office, the same office Daniel had once ruled from, reading through the latest audit reports. The view from the top floor hadn't changed, but everything else had. Suddenly, the door burst open. Laura stood there, hurt flashing across her face. "How could you do this to us?" she asked, her voice shaking. I looked up, calm but honest. "No, Laura. The real question is, how could he do this to you?" Laura stormed into my office, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her face flushed with frustration. She slammed her hands on my desk, eyes blazing. "Do you even realize what people are saying about us? Our friends won't take my calls. They're shutting me out, Eric." I looked up from my desk, meeting her stare. "Your friends?" I asked quietly. "Or Daniel's friends? There's a difference." She paused, caught off guard. "What does it matter? Daniel gave me everything: status, a beautiful life, respect. He built the world I live in." I stood and walked toward the tall windows behind me, looking out over the city skyline before turning back to her. "Let me show you something." I picked up the remote and tapped a button, bringing security footage onto the office screen. This was from last month's board meeting. Laura turned to look. Her expression changed as she watched the footage. There was Daniel, raising his voice, belittling a junior analyst in front of the room. Then mocked an elderly board member who raised concerns about the bank's unethical lending practices. His tone was cruel, dismissive, arrogant. "This is the man you built your perfect life with," I said softly. "This is how he treats people who aren't powerful enough to fight back. Just like how you stood there in silence at that family dinner while he tried to humiliate me." Her face crumpled, a mixture of guilt and sorrow settling in. I didn't know what to do. After he helped with Mom's hospital bills, I felt like I owed him. "He saved us, Eric." I turned toward her, my voice steady. "No, Laura. I paid those bills. Through one of my shell companies. Daniel just took the credit. Check the financial records. It's all there." She sank into the chair across from me, stunned. Her designer handbag slid from her shoulder and fell to the floor with a soft thud. "Why didn't you ever tell me? Would you have believed me?" I asked. "The brother with small dreams? The one you stopped defending a long time ago?" Before she could answer, the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Robinson," my assistant's voice said, "the FBI agents are here. It's about Mr. Taylor's trading violations." Laura's head shot up, eyes wide with panic. "Eric, please, he's still my husband. And you're still my sister," I said gently, pulling a chair next to hers. "That's why I've arranged for him to avoid prison. He'll cooperate with the investigation. There will be fines and restrictions, and his reputation won't survive, but he won't go to jail. The Taylor legacy ends here, but you won't have to see your husband in handcuffs." She looked at me, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Why?" she whispered. "After everything he did to you, why show him mercy?" I reached into my desk drawer and handed her a small, framed photo. It was old, faded around the edges. The two of us as kids, grinning in the sunlight. In the photo, Laura was standing in front of me, arms crossed, protecting her nerdy older brother from the schoolyard bullies. "Because a long time ago," I said quietly, "someone taught me that real strength isn't about having power. It's about how you choose to use it." Laura broke down, crying silently into her hands. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from the board lit up the screen. "Daniel has agreed to resign. His final act will be signing over his remaining shares." The message felt heavy, final. The Taylor banking dynasty was officially over. Maybe, just maybe, the Robinson siblings had started to heal. 1 year later, the sign on the tall glass building read Robinson and Partners Financial Group, the result of a bold merger between Monarch Bank and the companies I had quietly built over the years. The polished marble floors and mahogany accents remained, but the air inside had shifted completely. It no longer felt like a fortress for the elite. The environment was lighter, warmer, more human. Gone were the days of junior employees shrinking in fear whenever a senior executive walked by. In the new boardroom, once a symbol of exclusion, we now held regular meetings with small business owners, community organizers, and nonprofit leaders. It wasn't just about wealth anymore. It was about impact. I was reviewing a proposal for a micro-lending program aimed at supporting first-time entrepreneurs when my assistant knocked gently on the door. "Mr. Robinson, you have an unexpected visitor, Daniel." He stepped into the room a moment later. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked smaller, quieter somehow, not physically, but in presence. The power that once radiated from him was gone. His tailored French suits had been replaced by plain, off-the-rack ones, and the proud stance he used to wear like armor had softened. The immunity deal I'd negotiated a year earlier had spared him prison time, but his career hadn't survived. His name had become a whisper in the banking world, and most of his old friends had disappeared the moment his empire collapsed. "Eric," he said, nodding, his voice uncertain as he hovered near the door. I came to sign the last of the divorce papers. Laura told me you'd have them." I motioned for him to sit. "She mentioned you're moving to Milwaukee?" He sat slowly.
"Yeah."
"A small consulting firm. Very small." He tried to smile, but it faltered. "Kind of ironic, isn't it? All those dreams I used to laugh at, turns out they weren't so small after all." "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "They weren't." He pulled a folder from his briefcase and placed it on my desk. Inside were the final documents, his remaining Monarch Bank shares, signed over as part of the divorce settlement. It was the end of an era, in ink and paper. "You know what the hardest part has been?" he said, his voice quieter now. "It's not the money. Not even the reputation. It's knowing I had a chance to be part of something meaningful, and I threw it away. Your vision, building a financial system that helps people, strengthens communities. I could have helped you. I could have stood beside you instead of getting in the way." "Yes," I said honestly. "You could have." He nodded. "Laura seems happier now. I see it when we talk, when we meet with the lawyers. She's found her voice again. Started that children's charity she always used to dream about." "The one you said was a waste of time," I reminded him gently. He winced.
"Yeah."
"I deserved that, and a lot worse." He stood up and straightened his simple tie, far removed from the luxury brands he once flaunted. He looked at me one last time, his eyes tired but sincere. "For what it's worth."
"I'm sorry."
"Not just for that dinner or the loan you needed. For all of it. But for what it's worth, you were the better man, Eric. You always were." Those were Daniel's final words before he walked out of my office. After he left, I stood quietly for a moment, then stepped out into the heart of the company, the open office floors where our people worked. Not just my employees anymore. Our employees. A team built on trust, not fear. I passed familiar faces. The young analyst Daniel once humiliated in a board meeting was now leading our community outreach program, building bridges between the company and the people it served. The elderly board member Daniel mocked for being too cautious. His advice had become the cornerstone of our banking model: ethical finance, sustainable growth, and real transparency. On the 12th floor, a whole wing now belonged to the Laura Foundation, a charity my sister had launched for underprivileged children. She ran it with heart and focus, not for recognition, but because it finally gave her something real to believe in. Gone were the designer labels and dinner parties. In their place, purpose and peace. Some days, Laura and I would eat lunch together in my office, laughing about our childhood, about the wild turns life had taken. Slowly, piece by piece, we were rebuilding something far more valuable than a company. We were rebuilding our bond, the one we'd nearly lost. That afternoon, as I prepared for a board meeting, my assistant walked in with a new file. "A loan application," she said. "Small bakery downtown. The owner, Samantha, says she met you 13 years ago." I paused, the name instantly familiar. Samantha, the woman who ran a tiny cafe back when I was just starting Robinson Capital. When I couldn't afford her coffee, she gave it to me anyway. "Pay me back when you can," she'd said. She didn't just serve me coffee. She believed in me when almost no one else did. I picked up a pen and signed the application. Approved, with compliments from the small dream believer. As I handed it back, I realized something. The real win in all of this wasn't taking over Monarch Bank or watching Daniel fall. It was building something no one thought I could. Something lasting. Something meaningful. Daniel had once told me business was about power. In a way, he was right. But he never understood what true power is. It's not about how much you can take from others. It's about how much you can help others build. And in that, I had already won. The Smith family's annual reunion unfolded just as oppressively as I recalled. Glistening crystal chandeliers hung from the ceilings of my aunt's grandiose mansion, casting reflections on designer outfits and costly timepieces. The atmosphere was laden with a distinct blend of high-end perfume and a palpable sense of elitism that my relatives wore like a second skin. From my vantage point in the corner, I watched my cousins vie for the spotlight, each boasting about their recent successes. Dressed in a simple black dress designed to keep me inconspicuous, I used it as a shield against their scrutiny. "Jessica," called out Aunt Barbara, her voice slicing through the chatter. "I almost didn't notice you there. Still working as a secretary, dear?" I took a discreet sip of champagne, masking a smile behind my glass. "Administrative assistant, actually," I corrected softly. "Oh." She arched a perfectly groomed eyebrow. "Still at that little consulting firm? What was it called again?" "Summit Solutions," I responded quietly. Anthony, having just made partner at his father's law firm, chimed in, "Come on, Jessica. I could get you a real job, something with actual career potential." Thinking back to the stack of contracts awaiting my signature at my true office, far from the facade I presented to the world, I replied, "I'm happy where I am. Thanks." Aunt Barbara's laugh was sharp and cold. "Happy? Darling, you're squandering your potential. Your cousins are all executives, partners, and real business people. And you're just pushing paper for someone else." If only they knew the truth, that someone else was me. My journey to secretly building my empire began a decade ago in this very mansion. Fresh out of business school with an MBA and a groundbreaking business restructuring model, I was eager to leverage my family's extensive corporate network to jumpstart my career. However, when I presented my ideas, they were met with ridicule. Consulting. Uncle George had scoffed. "Leave that to the big firms, girl. Join the family business, start in the mailroom, and work your way up like everyone else." Everyone else meant my male cousins. In the Smith family, success was narrowly defined and tightly controlled. Men led the business empire, while women were expected to either marry well or accept subordinate roles. That night, I resolved to establish my own company, out of their sight and knowledge. And secondly, I vowed to make them regret their dismissive attitudes. Summit Solutions started modestly, in a small office above a French restaurant. My initial capital was meager, but my deep understanding of business mechanics, how companies falter, and how to revive them was priceless. My first client was a manufacturing firm teetering on the brink of collapse, ignored by larger firms. After 4 months of overhauling their operations and improving their processes, they were back in the black. Word of my firm's ability to rescue dying businesses spread discreetly through the corporate grapevine. I hired strategically, choosing associates who embraced both my vision and need for secrecy. Stringent NDAs ensured my anonymity. Publicly, I was just another CEO. Even as Summit Solutions expanded into a sleek new downtown headquarters, I maintained my unassuming facade, continuing to operate out of the small office above the restaurant. When family members inquired about my work, I fed them tales of trivial administrative duties, enjoying their disinterested responses. This ruse was more than just pride. It was a calculated strategy. While the Smith empire thrived on snapping up faltering companies at bargain prices, My firm specialized in stabilizing these companies before they could fall prey to such takeovers. Operating under the radar, we silently counteracted my family's predatory maneuvers. 13 years since its humble beginnings above a French restaurant, Summit Solutions has evolved into a titan in the consulting industry. With offices sprawled across 12 cities, a client roster filled with Fortune 650 companies, and a well-earned reputation for reviving failing businesses, we were a force to be reckoned with. Yet, none of my self-assured relatives had the slightest inkling about my role in its success. "More champagne, dear?" Aunt Barbara's voice snapped me back to reality at the family gathering. "Or perhaps you should stick with water. Your salary probably doesn't cover such luxuries." I accepted the glass with a well-practiced smile. "Thank you, Aunt Barbara. By the way, how's Uncle George managing with Edwards Manufacturing? I heard there were some hiccups." Her smile wavered just a bit. "Oh, just a few bumps. Nothing George can't handle, of course." She was blissfully unaware that the bumps were my doing. Edwards Manufacturing had been on the verge of falling into my uncle's hands through a hostile takeover, but they turned to Summit Solutions for salvation. Our strategies had revitalized their business, boosting their stock and thwarting my uncle's plans. Anthony chimed in. "Heard they brought in some consultants. Probably a waste. Those types are all talk and no action." Suppressing another smile, I thought about how Summit Solutions' fee for rescuing Edwards was more than Anthony would earn in years at his father's firm. "Oh, which firm?" I asked innocently. "Summit something or other," he replied dismissively, waving his hand. "Dad says their CEO is some trust fund kid playing business." At that moment, my phone vibrated with a message from my actual assistant. A real emergency. Smith Ventures wanted a meeting about a merger with Edwards Manufacturing. They were admitting defeat, and now they wanted to negotiate on my terms. "Everything okay, dear?" Aunt Barbara inquired, noting my distracted look. "Perfect, actually. I need to leave early. Big meeting tomorrow," I said, my smile never faltering. "Oh, taking notes for someone important?" "Something like that," I replied, already visualizing the suit I would wear tomorrow, a stark contrast to the simple attire from tonight's event. The next morning, I was in my element, ascending to the executive floor of Summit Solutions in a tailored Chanel suit in deep navy, a deliberate choice for what was sure to be a monumental day. My assistant, Julia, met me with updates and a knowing smile. "The Smith Ventures team is early," she informed me as we walked. "Your uncle looks eager to meet Summit CEO." "That's hardly surprising," I remarked, checking my reflection and adjusting my jacket. "Perfect. Are they in the main conference room?" "Yes, and Mr. Larry from Edwards Manufacturing is there too. Anthony's handling the legal aspects. Seems he couldn't resist." "Who else came?" "Aunt Barbara for moral support and Cousin Harold from finance." As we approached the meeting room, I glanced at my watch. 9:05 a.m. Perfect timing. "Have they been offered coffee yet?" Julia grinned wider. "Your aunt complained about the lack of service. I told her the administrative assistant would be right in." I couldn't help but chuckle softly. For a decade, I'd played the role of the unseen, the underestimated. Now, as I prepared to step into the conference room, it wasn't to fetch coffee or take notes. I was about to reveal myself as the CEO of Summit Solutions, ready to negotiate from a position of strength, sitting at the head of the table, facing the family that had never seen me for who I truly was. The game of deception was over, and it was time to unveil the truth. Whenever family members stopped by the office, they barely glanced at the quiet woman who handled mundane tasks like serving coffee or taking their coats. This oversight had served as my perfect disguise. "Give me 5 minutes," I instructed, "then bring in the contracts." I could already hear the buzz of conversation behind the heavy doors of the conference room. Uncle George's commanding voice, Aunt Barbara's piercing laughter, and Anthony's self-assured comments. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the doors, and the room fell silent. Uncle George sat assertively at one end of the long table, clearly having claimed the seat of power, with Anthony and Harold, both dressed in suits that showcased their wealth, flanking him. Aunt Barbara was nearby, feigning disinterest as she inspected her nails. Mr. Larry from Edwards Manufacturing sat opposite them, visibly uneasy. "We've been waiting for our coffee for," Aunt Barbara began, finally noticing me. She paused, her eyes narrowing in confusion. "Jessica, what are you wearing? And why aren't you carrying the coffee?" I walked confidently to the head of the table, taking the seat directly across from Uncle George. "I don't serve coffee anymore, Aunt Barbara. In fact, I never really did." "What is this?" Uncle George demanded, his tone incredulous. "Where is Summit CEO? We were promised a meeting with the actual decision-maker." "You have been," I replied, settling into my chair and enjoying the bewildered looks on their faces. "I am the CEO of Summit Solutions. I have been since I founded the company 13 years ago." The room went deathly quiet. Anthony's jaw dropped open. Harold fumbled and dropped his pen, and Aunt Barbara's usually impeccable composure faltered. Uncle George was the first to recover, his expression skeptical. "This is absurd. You're a secretary." "No," I said calmly. "That was a cover, a very effective one. It seems since none of you ever looked beyond it. You were so convinced I couldn't be successful that you never noticed I already was." At that moment, Julia entered, efficiently distributing a stack of contracts before taking a position behind my chair. "These documents," I continued, "outline the terms under which Summit Solutions will consider approving the merger between Smith Ventures and Edwards Manufacturing." "Consider approving?" Anthony spluttered, standing up. "You can't be serious. This is a joke, right? Some kind of elaborate prank." I pulled out my phone and projected Summit's latest financial statements onto the conference room screen. Summit Solutions currently manages over $82 billion in client assets. We have a 98% success rate in corporate restructuring, and our approval is required for any major changes to Edwards Manufacturing's business structure. I turned to face my stunned relatives. "Does that look like a joke to you?" "This is impossible," Aunt Barbara whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're nothing. You've always been nothing." "That's exactly what you were meant to think," I replied. Turning to Mr. Larry, I asked, "Would you like to explain to my family why you chose Summit Solutions over Smith Ventures' original offer?" Mr. Larry straightened in his seat, his voice firm. "Summit's reputation is unparalleled. When Smith Ventures attempted their hostile takeover, Summit's restructuring plan not only saved our company, but since implementing their strategies, we've increased profits by 50%. Harold looked as though he might pass out. "The plan that destroyed our acquisition attempt? That was you?" "Among others," I began, ticking off on my fingers. "Peterson Electronics, which you tried to acquire last year, Maritime Shipping, which you underbid on last quarter, the Davidson Group, which mysteriously recovered just before you could buy them out." I leaned forward, locking eyes with Uncle George. "For 13 years, I've been quietly undermining every predatory acquisition attempt your company has made." Uncle George's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "You deliberately sabotaged our family business?" "No," I corrected, my voice steady. "I built my own business, one that helps companies thrive instead of stripping them for parts. The fact that it interfered with your plans? Well, that's just a karmic bonus." "This is ridiculous," Anthony declared, standing abruptly. The tension in the room was palpable as the power dynamics shifted irreversibly. I was no longer the invisible secretary. I was the architect of my empire, finally revealing the full extent of my success to the family that had underestimated me for far too long. "I'm calling our lawyers." "Sit down, Anthony." My voice rang with an authority that stopped him mid-motion. "You really should look at those contracts in front of you. The ones your firm spent months trying to secure for this meeting." As I watched the realization dawn on his face, I continued, "That's right. The biggest client for your law firm this year? That was me, too." Julia, always precise, stepped forward with another document. "This is a summary of Summit Solutions' current market position and liquid assets. You'll notice that we are now in a position to potentially acquire controlling interest in Smith Ventures if we choose to." The room erupted into chaos. Aunt Barbara was on the verge of hyperventilating, Harold frantically verified the figures on his phone, and Anthony sank back into his chair, shell-shocked. "This is blackmail," Uncle George growled. "No," I corrected him calmly. "This is business. The kind you claimed I'd never be capable of handling." I stood, smoothing my jacket. "You have until 6 p.m. today to review the merger terms. They're quite generous, considering our position. If you decline, Summit Solutions will begin purchasing Smith Ventures stock on the open market tomorrow morning." As I headed for the door, I paused. "Oh, and Aunt Barbara, about that champagne you so graciously offered me last night? I own the vineyard that produces it. Bought it last year. And the coffee you were so eager for this morning? I own that chain too." I gave them a sweet smile. Turns out, my salary does leave room for expensive tastes after all. Closing the door behind me, I left them to their stunned silence. Back in my private office, I allowed myself a moment to reflect on what had just unfolded. 13 years of careful deception, of playing the invisible underachiever, had culminated in this moment. Julia appeared with a real cup of coffee, my favorite blend from my coffee chain. "Was it worth the wait?" she asked. As I savored the coffee, I thought about all the times I'd served drinks in this very office, watching my family dismiss and underestimate me, considering me nothing more than a secretary. Every second had been worth it. My phone buzzed with messages from family members who must have heard about the meeting. I silenced it without looking. They'd have plenty of time to adjust to their new reality. Right now, I had an empire to run, and for the first time in 13 years, I could do it openly, without hiding who I was. The next 50 hours were as chaotic as you'd expect in a family built on power and appearances, suddenly realizing they weren't at the top anymore. Messages flooded in almost immediately. Aunt Barbara wanted to discuss things over lunch, claiming I had always been her favorite niece. Anthony joked that it was all just family banter, insisting that family should stick together. Harold pleaded, reminding me of our blood ties. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the rapid emails from Smith Ventures board members. They weren't fools. They could see which way the wind was blowing. By noon, they had called an emergency board meeting. By 4, they had voted to accept Summit's merger terms. Uncle George, predictably, didn't go quietly. His voice echoed through my office as he barged in unannounced. Julia moved to intervene, but I waved her off, letting him have his moment. "Actually," I said, not looking up from my computer, "I'd say I learned from the best. Isn't this exactly what you taught us? Seize power, eliminate competition, never show weakness." "You've betrayed this family," he accused. That made me laugh. "You gave me nothing, less than nothing. You taught me that I would never be good enough, and that my only value was in supporting the men in the family. So, I built something better, by deceiving everyone for a decade." Sitting back, I let the weight of my words sink in. This was not just a takeover, it was a complete reversal of everything they thought they knew about me. Now, they were playing by my rules, and it was time for them to learn just how good I was at this game. As Uncle George slumped into one of the visitor chairs in my office, looking significantly older and wearier, I finally looked up from my laptop. "By letting you deceive yourselves, you saw exactly what you wanted to see. A quiet, unambitious woman who supposedly knew her place. That was your mistake, not mine." The fight visibly drained from him as he heard these words. "Why reveal yourself now?" he asked, his voice laden with resignation. "You could have continued operating in secret. It was time," I replied, closing my laptop with a definitive snap. "Edwards Manufacturing isn't the only company you're trying to acquire. There's Thompson Electronics, Maritime Solutions, and at least 4 other companies. They are businesses with good people and solid products that need a bit of restructuring. I'm tired of watching you attempt to destroy them." "It's just business," he protested weakly. "No, it's greed. And it stops now." I handed him a folder containing the final merger terms. Summit Solutions will acquire a controlling interest in Smith Ventures. We'll restructure the company to focus on building businesses up, not tearing them down. You can stay on as a consultant if you accept the new direction. If not, your golden parachute is outlined on page 4. He opened the folder with trembling hands. "You thought of everything." "I learned from the best," I said, my smile devoid of warmth, though not in the way you intended. After he left, Julia brought in a stack of newspapers. The revelation of Summit's secret CEO was already making headlines. Secret CEO revealed how one woman built a billion-dollar empire in secret. Smith family shocked. The hidden success story they never saw coming. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message that truly mattered. It was from my mother, who had divorced Uncle George's brother years ago and distanced herself from the Smith family's toxicity. She had sent a single line, "I always knew you would show them." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. Smith Ventures board enthusiastically embraced Summit's new direction, and their stock price jumped 52% on the announcement of the merger. Companies that had once feared the Smith name now sought partnerships. The press couldn't get enough of the story. Aunt Barbara tried to spin it as a heartwarming family success story. "We always knew Jessica had potential," she told one reporter. "This just proves that the Smith spirit of entrepreneurship runs in the blood." I responded by releasing archived video footage from last year's family reunion where she had spent 30 minutes explaining to everyone why I would never amount to anything. The footage went viral, and she stopped giving interviews after that. Anthony attempted damage control, claiming he had been in on it all along. Unfortunately for him, too many people had witnessed his shocked face in that conference room. His law firm's other clients began questioning his judgment, and within a month, he was quietly asked to take a leave of absence. Harold adapted the fastest, approaching me with a business proposal just 3 weeks after the revelation. Over an awkward lunch, he suggested, we could dominate the market together. The Smith Summit Alliance would be unstoppable. "That's not what Summit Solutions is about," I told him firmly. "We don't dominate, we elevate." The real changes came in quieter moments. The young intern who tearfully thanked me for showing her that success didn't require compromising her principles. The female executives who started reaching out shared their own stories of being underestimated. The business schools invited me to speak about building ethical success in a cutthroat world. 5 months after the revelation, I stood on a stage accepting the Business Innovation Award. Looking out at the audience, I saw my mother sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. Behind her sat several of my former administrative assistants, all women who had helped maintain my cover. Their faces reflected not just admiration but a shared victory in our collective success, a testament to what could be achieved when one refused to stay within the lines others had drawn. In the dynamic world of Summit Solutions, success is not determined by the amount of power one holds, but rather by the effective and positive use of that power. Over the course of a decade, I embraced a role that often led influential figures to underestimate me. This strategic choice allowed me to bide my time until our company was robust enough to drive meaningful change. The turning point came during a speech I delivered, where I shared my perspective on true power and its purpose. The audience's applause was deafening, yet the real gratification unfolded later that evening. While working late, my assistant Julia interrupted with surprising news. Uncle George was retiring. His resignation letter unexpectedly acknowledged a valuable lesson learned from me. True business success is measured not by acquisitions or assets, but by the positive impact we create. He expressed regret for only realizing this after losing control of his company. Reflecting in my office chair, I pondered the decade of strategic patience, during which I deliberately kept a low profile, allowing others to overlook me until the timing was perfect. Now, Summit Solutions was not just thriving, it was revolutionizing business practices. Looking ahead to the next family reunion, which I intended to host in Summit's main conference room, where I had once served coffee, I anticipated a lively gathering. It was the same room where I had quietly observed and waited for the opportune moment to reveal my true capabilities. As Julia informed me of my next appointment, the CEO of Thomson Electronics, a firm Uncle George had once aimed to acquire, I prepared to meet them with confidence. "Bring in a good coffee from our chain," I instructed Julia, ready to welcome them. Standing to greet my visitors, I saw my reflection in the window, no longer hiding, no longer minimizing my presence. I had built something extraordinary, not despite my family's skepticism, but because of it. They taught me that power often does not conform to expectations. It might look like a quiet woman in a simple black dress, serving coffee and taking notes, all while masterfully constructing an empire right under their noses. Media reactions varied. Some called it revenge, others termed it strategic genius. For me, it was simply justice, delivered one corporate takeover at a time, accompanied by impeccably brewed coffee. In a humble office above a French restaurant, my old desk stands as a testament. True success isn't always dressed in designer clothes or announced with fanfare. Often, it works quietly and patiently, crafting something remarkable as the world turns its attention elsewhere. This is the true nature of success. It's not about the power you display, but the power you nurture quietly, making a profound difference when no one is looking. The day Aunt Megan passed away, I was buried up to my elbows in garden soil, carefully planting the heirloom roses she had gifted me for my birthday. My phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket, demanding attention, until I finally peeled off my gardening gloves and answered the call. "Miss Williams," said an unfamiliar, formal voice. "This is Daniel Taylor, your Aunt Megan's attorney. I'm afraid I have some difficult news." My heart froze, and suddenly the roses felt unbearably heavy in my hands. These flowers were Aunt Megan's final gift to me, and somehow I already knew. "What happened?" I asked softly, dreading the answer. "Your aunt passed away peacefully in her sleep last night," he explained gently. He paused, clearly choosing his words with care. "She left explicit instructions for me to contact you first, before anyone else in the family." My knees gave out, and I sank slowly onto the damp earth, hardly hearing him anymore. Aunt Megan, the woman who had patiently taught me how to read, who'd secretly handed me warm chocolate chip cookies during tedious family gatherings, who had always stood by me, encouraging every dream and hope, was gone forever. "Miss Williams? Are you there?" "Yes," I whispered, barely managing to form the words. "I'm here. What do you need me to do?" He cleared his throat slightly. "Your aunt left very detailed instructions regarding her funeral arrangements," he explained, then paused again. "She also left a letter specifically for you. It must be read before the funeral service. Could you come to my office today?" I glanced down at the roses in my lap. They were the Queen Elizabeth variety, Aunt Megan's absolute favorite. She had given them to me herself just 3 weeks earlier, her eyes sparkling with the playful secrecy I'd always adored. "These roses have been in our family for generations," she'd said, handing them over with a knowing smile. Like all the best family secrets. At the time, I had assumed it was another one of her intriguing but mysterious comments. Now, as I stared at the blossoms, I wasn't so sure. "I'll be there within the hour," I promised. Daniel Taylor's office looked precisely as you'd expect for a lawyer accustomed to managing wealthy estates. It was all polished dark wood furniture, shelves lined with thick, leather-bound books, and an expansive window overlooking the city skyline, a view worth far more than I made in a year. Taylor stood up as I entered, giving me a sympathetic smile. "Miss Williams, thank you for coming so quickly. Please have a seat." I sat awkwardly in one of the plush chairs, trying to ignore how out of place I felt. "Mr. Taylor, what's all this about? Why did Aunt Megan insist you contact me first?" He silently reached into his desk drawer, producing 2 envelopes. The first was thick, official-looking, with the firm's letterhead. The second envelope was smaller, cream-colored, and had my name written across it in Aunt Megan's unmistakable, elegant handwriting. "Your aunt was certainly unique," Taylor began, choosing his words carefully. "Brilliant in business, meticulous in detail, and she had strong opinions about how her final wishes should be handled. She left explicit instructions regarding her will and funeral arrangements." "That definitely sounds like Aunt Megan," I murmured fondly. He gently slid the cream-colored envelope across the polished desk toward me. She requested that you read this letter privately first. Once you're done, we can discuss everything else. My hands trembled slightly as I picked up the envelope. Aunt Megan's distinct scent, a comforting mix of roses and vanilla, still lingered faintly on the paper. I opened it slowly, carefully pulling out a single sheet of her personalized stationery. "My dearest Elizabeth," the letter began. "If you're reading this, I've finally run out of time. Please don't feel sad. I've lived precisely the life I wanted, something not many people can genuinely claim. Yet, there's one final favor I need from you, my beloved niece. At my funeral, you must read another letter aloud, a letter that will change our family forever. It is hidden within the secret compartment of my jewelry box. Do you remember how to open it? I showed you when you were just 12, using that trick with the carved rose. Some may call this letter revenge, but I prefer to see it as justice. Delayed, perhaps, but justice all the same. You deserve the truth, and so do I. Everything I own, Huntington Industries, my personal assets, all of it, is now yours. Be brave, Elizabeth." My breath caught in my throat. The room suddenly felt smaller, and the enormity of Aunt Megan's final request settled heavily upon me. Her secrets had always been deeper than anyone knew, and now, it was up to me to reveal them. But there's one important condition. You must read this letter aloud at my funeral in front of the entire family, with no exceptions. I understand this is asking a lot from you, especially at a difficult time like this. Yet, Elizabeth, you've always been the strong one, the honest and brave one. That's exactly why it must be you. With all my love, Aunt Megan P.S. Under no circumstances should you let them bury me in anything beige. You know exactly how I feel about beige. I read Aunt Megan's letter twice, then slowly lifted my eyes to look at Taylor. She left everything to me? I asked, almost unable to believe it. He nodded solemnly, opening the official envelope with practiced calm. Huntington Industries, her personal estate, investment portfolios, approximately $115 million in total assets. However, as she stated, this inheritance is conditional on your fulfilling her final request. My head began to spin. Aunt Megan had always been exceptionally generous with me, but this was beyond anything I had ever imagined. What about the rest of the family, my father, my cousins? I asked hesitantly. Taylor gave a small, careful nod. There are a few smaller bequests for them, but the vast majority of the estate will go to you, provided you honor her conditions. Thoughts flashed through my mind about my father, who had always envied his younger sister's success. I thought of my cousins who spent years ingratiating themselves to Aunt Megan, hoping they would inherit her wealth. All those family gatherings where Megan sat quietly in the background, observing everything carefully, as if waiting patiently for a particular moment. When is the funeral? I finally asked. In 5 days, Taylor replied promptly. Your aunt was precise about every detail. The service will be held at St. Patrick's Cathedral, followed by a reception at her estate. The entire family is expected to attend. I stood up, clutching Megan's letter tightly. Then I should go. I have a jewelry box to find. Taylor stopped me just as I reached the door. Miss Williams, one more thing, he called out softly. Your aunt specifically wanted me to pass along one more message. She said, Elizabeth, you'll know exactly what to do with the truth. The drive to Megan's estate felt endless, even though it was only 30 minutes. My mind raced, overflowing with unanswered questions. What was written in that second letter? What family secret was so critical that Megan had made revealing it a condition of her will? As I approached, the iron gates swung open automatically. Megan had given me the security code years ago, claiming she trusted me far more than any electronic system. Her home looked exactly as I remembered, a grand Victorian mansion surrounded by beautifully maintained gardens, roses climbing gracefully along every wall. Mrs. Evans, the housekeeper, met me at the entrance, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Oh, Miss Elizabeth, thank goodness you're here. Your aunt left instructions for you to have full access to her personal rooms. Thank you, Mrs. Evans. I won't be long. I reassured her gently. Aunt Megan's bedroom was upstairs, overlooking her prized rose garden. Like my aunt herself, it combined elegant sophistication with a playful charm, colorful silk curtains, contemporary artwork alongside classic family portraits, and countless subtle nods to her love for roses. Her jewelry box sat untouched on the dresser, just as I remembered. Its surface was intricately carved with delicate floral designs. Carefully, I traced the detailed carvings until my fingers found the familiar hidden mechanism, the small rose pattern Megan had once taught me to recognize. "Third petal from the left," I whispered softly, recalling her precise instructions from my childhood. With a quiet click, a hidden panel opened smoothly, revealing a secret compartment inside. Lying within was another envelope, sealed securely with wax and clearly labeled, "To be opened at my funeral." It felt heavier than I had expected, and I could sense photographs hidden inside. My hand trembled slightly as I picked it up, and for just a moment, temptation nearly overtook me. I wanted desperately to open it right then and there. But I knew Megan well enough to understand that everything she did had a deeper meaning. If she insisted that this secret be revealed publicly at her funeral, surrounded by the entire family, she must have had an important reason. Trusting her judgment, I carefully slipped the sealed envelope into my bag and glanced around the room one last time. On Megan's bedside table stood a framed photograph I had never seen before. It showed a youthful Megan standing proudly outside the original office building of Huntington Industries. She wore a confident, knowing smile, her signature look, one that always made me feel like she understood everything about people, especially the things they tried hardest to hide. "What secret did you keep all these years, Aunt Megan?" I murmured softly to the photo. What truth could be so important you'd wait a lifetime to reveal it? The next 5 days passed quickly, filled with funeral preparations, tension, and endless family drama. My father phoned multiple times, alternating between genuine concern over my role in the funeral arrangements and thinly veiled anxiety about Megan's mysterious will. My cousins bombarded me with endless messages, each more transparent in their selfishness and greed than the last. Through all the chaos, I never let Megan's sealed envelope out of my sight. At night, when everything was quiet, I'd take it out and turn it over in my hands, wondering desperately what revelations it contained. What truth was so monumental that Megan was willing to stake her entire legacy upon its disclosure? The morning of the funeral was bright and clear, almost serene. I chose my outfit carefully, a deep blue suit, Megan's favorite color, and pinned one of her cherished roses to my lapel. The envelope felt heavy in my bag, its significance greater than just paper and photographs. St. Patrick's Cathedral was overflowing with attendees by the time I arrived. The Huntington family was old money, and Megan had been a beloved figure, admired for both her business acumen and extensive charity work. The pews were crowded with family members, business colleagues, and prominent city figures. My father caught me immediately as I entered, anxiety visibly etched into his expression. "Elizabeth, we need to talk about the will. Taylor refuses to tell us anything. He insists we wait until after the service. Do you know what's going on?" I looked him firmly in the eye. "We'll all find out together, Dad." That's exactly how Aunt Megan wanted it. He gripped my arm urgently as I tried to move past. "Elizabeth, if you know something, let go, Dad," I said, calm but firm. "This is Megan's funeral. Let's show some respect." The service itself was beautiful and perfect, exactly as Megan would have wished. True to her instructions, nothing beige was anywhere in sight. Roses in deep reds and vibrant pinks adorned every corner. The minister's words celebrated her generosity, sharp intellect, and unwavering commitment to improving the lives of others. Finally, it was time. Taylor caught my eye from his seat in the front pew and gave a subtle nod. My hands shook slightly as I stood and moved toward the podium, gripping Megan's envelope tightly. The cathedral quieted instantly, hundreds of eyes watching me with tense anticipation. My father sat rigidly in the front row, anxiety plain across his features. Beside him, my cousins, Scott and Amanda, leaned forward eagerly, like vultures circling their prey. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself, the calming fragrance of roses surrounding me. At that moment, it felt like Megan stood beside me, giving me strength and courage. Before her death, I began, my voice remarkably steady despite my pounding heart. My Aunt Megan left specific instructions. She entrusted me with a letter that she insisted must be read here today, publicly, before everyone gathered here. Slowly, deliberately, I broke the wax seal, fully aware of the expectant silence. Inside the envelope, as expected, were several pages of written documents accompanied by photographs. As I removed them carefully, I heard a sharp, shocked gasp from my father. The first photograph depicted a young Megan, smiling brightly beside a man I didn't recognize. They held up what appeared to be architectural blueprints. The next image was of the same unknown man at a construction site, overseeing the early construction of what was unmistakably the original Huntington Industries building. My name was Megan Huntington. I read clearly from the letter, feeling every word resonate profoundly in the charged silence of the cathedral. My hands were steady as I unfolded Megan's letter, my voice clear and confident, echoing gently through the silent cathedral. My name was Megan Huntington, and this is the true story of how Huntington Industries began. I began carefully, feeling every word carry weight through the hushed room. The man in these photographs is Kevin Davis, a gifted engineer, a visionary innovator, and my original business partner. It was Kevin who truly founded what would later become Huntington Industries. A ripple of shock passed through the congregation. I noticed my father's face pale dramatically in the front row. Kevin and I met at university, I continued. We shared a dream of changing the world by developing sustainable, eco-friendly building materials. Kevin was the engineering genius, while I managed the business side. Together, we built the foundation of Huntington Industries. I paused, taking out another photograph from the envelope. It showed Megan and Kevin smiling, shaking hands over a signed contract. We were equal partners. Everything was split evenly between us. The patents, the profits, and the future of the company. This was our agreement until the night of November 8th, 1958, when Kevin died tragically in a car crash. My father suddenly attempted to stand, visibly agitated, but Uncle Henry reached out, firmly pulling him back down. But Kevin's death was not an accident. I continued firmly. The brakes in his car had been deliberately tampered with. Unfortunately, I discovered this truth only after the investigation was already closed. I raised my eyes and locked my gaze directly onto my father's anxious face. I also found something else, legal documents filed just hours before Kevin's death, transferring his entire half of the business into the Huntington Family Trust. These papers appeared to carry Kevin's signature, a signature later proven to be forged by Kevin's supposed business partner, my brother, George Huntington. The cathedral erupted into gasps and shocked whispers. My father surged to his feet, fury in his eyes. "Stop this madness right now," he shouted angrily. "This is slander." "No, Dad," I said calmly, clearly, meeting his furious gaze without wavering. "This is the truth." Aunt Megan left behind proof. I held up the envelope containing Megan's carefully collected documents, contracts, forensic evidence, police reports that had been quietly hidden, and detailed financial records. She kept everything.
Why?
The anguished question came from my cousin Scott, who stared at his uncle, my father, with horror and disbelief. Why reveal this now? Turning back to Megan's letter, I continued reading. "I am revealing this now because I've spent 60 years building Huntington Industries into something Kevin would be proud of. I've ensured our success has funded research, supported innovation and sustainability, and created opportunities for brilliant minds just like his. But for those same 60 years, I've watched my brother benefit from his crime, raising his family to believe privilege and power exempt them from justice." My father slumped back into the pew, the fight visibly draining from him as Megan's words continued to unfold. The truth should have come out years ago. Yet, by the time I gathered sufficient proof, Huntington Industries had grown significantly, employing thousands of people whose livelihoods depended on its survival. Exposing George's crime prematurely would have devastated innocent families. Thus, I made a difficult decision. I waited, patiently building and strengthening the company so that when the truth was revealed, Huntington Industries could withstand the storm. Finally, I pulled out one last, worn document from the envelope, a faded envelope addressed to Kevin Davis's daughter, Emily. And that brings me to my final confession. I read carefully. Throughout these years, I've quietly supported Kevin's only surviving child, Emily Davis. I've anonymously funded her education, backed her groundbreaking research in sustainable engineering, and watched her grow into a remarkable, ethical scientist, just like her father. Today, Emily Davis runs one of the country's most innovative green technology firms, unaware until this moment who her secret benefactor has been. More startled whispers filled the cathedral as a woman rose slowly from her seat among the middle pews, her eyes wide with astonishment and emotion. She was about my age, with Kevin's deep, thoughtful eyes and a determined expression that echoed her father's resolve. Megan had carefully orchestrated every detail, even ensuring that Emily Davis would be present to witness this profound moment. Taking a deep breath, I continued reading, my voice growing stronger and more certain with every word. The second part of my will leaves a 41% ownership stake in Huntington Industries to Emily Davis as partial compensation for what was unjustly taken from her father. The controlling interest in the company, however, goes to my niece Elizabeth, the only member of the Huntington family who has consistently shown the ethics, integrity, and vision that Kevin and I once shared. I raised my gaze, absorbing the stunned silence that enveloped the cathedral. The last line of Megan's letter resonated deeply. Signed, Megan Huntington, co-founder of Huntington Industries and keeper of its greatest shame. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. The silence felt heavy and charged. Finally, slowly, Emily Davis stood up and began walking toward the front, stopping directly before my father. His appearance had drastically changed, as though the revelations had aged him significantly within minutes. All these years, Emily's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. I thought my father had failed or abandoned his dreams. I had no idea, no inkling, that he had been betrayed. Ms. Davis, I stepped down gently from the podium, reaching out with genuine sympathy. I'm so deeply sorry for everything that was taken from you and your family. Her eyes filled with tears as she turned to me, her voice soft but filled with emotion. Thank you for having the courage to share Megan's truth. She was watching over me my entire life, wasn't she? She was trying to make things right. I responded quietly, in her way. The hours following the funeral service passed swiftly, yet tensely. The reception was understandably fraught with tension and division. Family members broke into heated groups, some demanding that the revelations be buried, others insisting we immediately involve authorities, while a few sat quietly in shock, trying to process the reality that had just come to light. My father vanished quickly after the service ended, and weeks passed before I heard from him again. Eventually, he entered a rehabilitation center, finally beginning to confront the heavy burden of guilt he'd carried for decades. In the following months, the true history behind Huntington Industries became widely known, sparking public discussion and scrutiny. However, Megan had been right. The company was resilient enough to withstand the revelations. Under Emily's technical brilliance and my dedication to Megan's ethical vision, Huntington Industries embarked upon a new chapter. 1 year later, I found myself standing in Megan's cherished rose garden, blooming vibrantly, more beautiful than ever. Emily joined me weekly there, meetings where we planned company strategies and shared our mutual passion for sustainable innovation. You know what's strange? Emily gently caressed the petals of one of Megan's favorite Queen Elizabeth roses. I've always felt guided, protected somehow, like someone was quietly steering my life. I assumed it was my father's spirit, looking after me from beyond. Now I understand. It was Megan all along. She tried to protect everyone, I said thoughtfully, gazing at the lush garden. The employees, the legacy, you, even my father. But she couldn't let the truth remain hidden forever. Emily considered this carefully. Do you think she made the right decision, waiting all those years? I paused, thinking deeply. I believe she did the very best anyone could in an impossible situation. Megan transformed a business built upon deception into something genuinely good and beneficial. She made sure you thrived, and ultimately, she ensured that the truth came out in her own way, on her own terms. Emily studied me quietly for a moment. And you? Do you ever regret being the one who had to deliver such difficult truths? I gazed thoughtfully across the garden, recalling Megan's cryptic smiles, her hidden strength, and her subtle wisdom. No, I finally answered with certainty. Megan chose me because she knew I could handle it. She trusted me to understand that facing difficult truths is sometimes the only path to real integrity. Emily smiled warmly, pointing toward the Huntington Industries building in the distance. She would be proud of what we've built, a true partnership, exactly as she and my father originally intended. I gently touched one of Megan's roses, now flourishing beautifully. She once told me these roses had been passed down through generations, carrying secrets just like our own. But perhaps now it was time for new traditions built on honesty instead of secrets, genuine partnership rather than competition, and working together instead of taking from each other. Emily gently squeezed my hand, her expression warm and hopeful. I think both our fathers would have appreciated that, she said softly, her voice filled with sincere emotion. Later that evening, as I sat quietly in Megan's study, now my study, I sifted through company reports, my mind full of new plans and possibilities. As I flipped through her old desk calendar, a small, neatly folded note slipped out onto the desk. The note was dated the very day Megan had passed, and her familiar, graceful handwriting brought a lump to my throat. Dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, you've fulfilled my final request. You've courageously confronted the truth and handled it with remarkable grace. That's precisely why I chose you. Not merely to inherit Huntington Industries, but to transform it into the company Kevin and I once envisioned. Next spring, the roses in the garden will bloom once more. When you see their petals opening, remember this. Even in the darkest soil, beauty can flourish, if only we dare to plant the seeds. All my love, Megan. I carefully placed the precious note back into my desk drawer, feeling deeply moved. Outside the window, the setting sun bathed the rose garden in warm shades of gold and amber, a peaceful beauty that seemed to reflect Megan's lasting legacy. She had left me far more than just a thriving business empire. She had given me a profound opportunity to correct past wrongs, build something truly meaningful, and show that the truth, no matter how long hidden, always had the power to blossom. Tomorrow would bring endless meetings, difficult decisions, and all the enormous responsibilities that came with guiding a successful multi-million-dollar company. But tonight, in the calm and quiet of Megan's study, surrounded by the gentle fragrance of roses, I realized the greatest inheritances aren't always measured in money or material possessions. Sometimes, the heaviest yet most meaningful inheritances are the truths we carry forward, the lessons we embody, and the courage to turn past pain into future strength. Just like Megan, I would hold this truth close, not to destroy, but to rebuild, not to punish, but to heal. I would nurture something beautiful and lasting from the complexities of our history. That had always been Megan's way. It was the path she'd carefully prepared me to follow. And deep within me, I knew Megan was somewhere watching, her familiar, knowing smile lighting up her face, proud that her final secret had at last emerged into the healing warmth of daylight.
The numbers glared back at me from my phone screen, 0.00. I blinked hard, refreshed the banking app, and checked again. Still 0. The surgery fund my family had been building for 5 years, $50,000 meant to keep me alive, had vanished. My name is Olivia, and I was about to learn exactly how much my life was worth to my family. "Mom," I called out, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. "Can you come here for a minute?" I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood floor before she appeared in my doorway, already looking annoyed. What is it? I'm running late for book club. The surgery fund, I said, turning my phone screen toward her. It's empty. Her face didn't register surprise. That's when I knew. Oh, that. She waved her hand dismissively. Garrett needed it for a temporary business investment. He'll double it within a month, don't worry. The room started spinning. He what? Don't be dramatic, Olivia. Your brother knows what he's doing. He's got major investors lined up. You let him take my surgery money? My voice cracked. Without even asking me? It's a family decision, she said, checking her watch. Your father and I agreed it was the right move. The specialists said you could wait another year anyway. I gripped my bedsheet so hard my knuckles turned white. Where's Garrett? In his office, but don't... I was already pushing past her, ignoring the familiar ache in my joints as I stormed down the hallway. I didn't bother knocking. Garrett spun around in his chair, that trademark golden boy smile faltering when he saw my face. Hey, sis, everything okay? The fund, I said. What did you do with it? He leaned back, all casual confidence. Just a temporary thing. I've got this huge deal coming through. Cut the bullshit. Where's the money? Look, he stood up, hands raised placatingly. There was this opportunity I couldn't pass up. High-stakes poker game, private table. My contacts swore it was a sure thing. You gambled my surgery money? Invested, he corrected. And yeah, it didn't go as planned, but I've got another angle. 2 months tops, I'll have it all back, plus more. Dad appeared in the doorway, probably drawn by our voices. What's going on? Tell him, I said to Garrett. Tell him what you did with the money. Martin, Mom rushed in behind him. I was just explaining to Olivia about the temporary arrangement. Temporary arrangement? I laughed, a harsh sound. He lost it all gambling. Now hold on. Dad raised his hands. Garrett assured us this was a legitimate business venture. And you believed him? Again? Watch your tone, Mom snapped. Your brother is trying to help this family. Help? I pulled out my phone, fingers shaking as I opened my medical records. My condition is getting worse. The specialist said if we wait too long... You always make everything so dramatic, Garrett interrupted. A year won't kill you. The room went silent. I stared at my brother, my parents' precious firstborn, their golden child, and something inside me finally snapped. You're right, I said quietly. A year won't kill me. You're doing that just fine on your own. Olivia, Mom gasped. I need some air, I muttered, pushing past them. Don't be like this, Garrett called after me. Come on, we're family. I slammed the front door behind me, but not before hearing Mom's voice. Just let her go. She'll calm down eventually. She always does. They were right about that. I always had before. The quiet one, the sick one, the burden they had to deal with. Poor little Olivia, always making a fuss about her health while perfect Garrett chased his dreams. But they didn't know about the recording I'd made 3 weeks ago. The one where Garrett bragged to his poker buddies about how easy it was to manipulate his investors, how he could always count on family money to cover his losses. Back in my apartment that evening, I opened my laptop and created a new email draft. The subject line read, "Confidential regarding Garrett Ross." My hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time in years, I felt perfectly steady. They wanted the quiet daughter. Fine. They'd see just how quietly I could destroy everything they'd built to protect him. I clicked Save Draft and smiled. Sometimes the sickest person in the room isn't the one with the medical condition. Growing up, my bedroom window faced Garrett's trophy wall. Every morning I'd wake up to the glint of gold medals and plaques celebrating his achievements. Meanwhile, my wall displayed a medical chart tracking my vital signs. Your brother's special, Mom would say whenever I questioned the disparity. He's going places. I was going places too, mainly to hospitals. Now, sitting in my tiny apartment, I scrolled through years of family photos on my phone. Each one told the same story: Garrett center stage, me pushed to the edges. Even at my high school graduation, which I'd attended against doctor's orders, the family photos showed them clustered around him as he announced his first startup. My phone buzzed. A text from Jillian. "You okay? Haven't heard from you since yesterday." "I'm fine," I typed back. "Just processing things." "Mom's worried," I snorted. "About me or about Garrett?" "Don't be like that." "Like what? Accurate?" She didn't respond. I opened my laptop and pulled up Dad's email from 6 months ago. I'd kept it as proof of his promise to never touch the surgery fund without my consent. Now I noticed something I'd missed before. He'd CC'd Garrett on it. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Olivia?" A woman's voice, confident and sharp. "This is Delilah Hart." My heart skipped. Garrett's ex-girlfriend and former business partner. "Yes," I said carefully. "How did you—" "Your sister gave me your number. Said you might want to talk." I sat up straighter. "About Garrett?" "About everything." She paused. "Look, I'm at the Coffee Bean on 5th. Can you meet me?" 30 minutes later, I slid into a booth across from a woman who looked like she ate corporate sharks for breakfast. "So," Delilah stirred her coffee, "your brother finally screwed you over too. You sound unsurprised." "Honey, Garrett's been running the same game for years. Family money, investor money, it all goes to the same place." "The poker table?" She nodded. "Among other things. But here's what you probably don't know. Your dad's been covering for him way longer than anyone realizes." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She pulled out her phone, scrolled briefly, then turned it toward me. Bank statements, dozens of them. "Your father gave Garrett access to your fund months ago," she said quietly. "He never actually stole anything. They handed it to him." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "How did you get these?" "I was his business partner, remember? I saw everything before I got out, including this." She showed me another document. "Recognize that signature?" I leaned closer. It was mine, except I'd never signed it. "That's a medical loan application from last year," Delilah explained. "Garrett forged your signature, used the money to pay off some gambling debts." The room started spinning again, but differently this time. Not with shock, with rage. "Why are you showing me this?" Delilah's smile was razor sharp. "Because I've been waiting for someone in your family to finally see him for what he is. And because—" Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. Perfect timing. "That's Xander Cooper." "The investor?" "Garrett's biggest fish yet. He's been getting suspicious about some inconsistencies in the reports. Asked me to look into it, given our history." My phone buzzed. A voicemail notification from an unknown number. "Play it," Delilah suggested. I put it on speaker. "Mr. Ross, this is Xander Cooper. There seem to be some discrepancies in your latest proposal. My team has flagged several concerning patterns. I expect a full explanation by tomorrow, or we'll need to reevaluate our arrangement." Delilah's smile widened. "Sounds like your brother's house of cards is getting shaky. What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm offering you ammunition." She stood up, dropping a business card on the table. "Call me when you're ready to use it." I watched her leave, then looked down at the card. Behind it was a receipt for my coffee. She'd already paid for it. My phone buzzed again. "Mom, family dinner tonight. Your brother needs our support right now." Of course he did. He always did. I picked up Delilah's card and typed her number into my phone. Then I pulled up that draft email from yesterday and started typing, "Dear Mr. Cooper, regarding your concerns about Garrett Ross's business practices, there's something you should know. Sometimes the best revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be true." "You're getting really good at this," Delilah said, reviewing the dossier we'd compiled. "Almost scary good." We sat in her home office surrounded by printed screenshots, bank statements, and transcripts. 3 days of meticulous work spread across her desk. It's amazing what people say when they think no one's keeping receipts, I replied, adding another printed email to the pile. Speaking of receipts, Delilah tapped her laptop, your brother just tried to raise another 100 grand from the Thompson Group. Use the same pitch he gave Xander. Bold move for someone already under scrutiny. Bold isn't the word I'd use, she smirked. How's the family dinner plan coming along? I checked my phone. Mom's insisting on celebrating his birthday early. Says we need to come together as a family right now. Perfect timing. My phone buzzed. Jillian, can we talk? Alone? I need to go, I told Delilah. My sister wants to meet. The wild card, Delilah mused. Be careful. I found Jillian at our old playground, sitting on the swings like we used to as kids. She looked tired. I'm sorry, she said as I sat on the swing next to her. About everything. Are you? You don't understand. She dug her feet into the wood chips. It's not just about you. Garrett's been doing this for years. I know. No, you don't. She reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. Remember when I had to quit art school? It wasn't just because of money. He'd taken out loans in my name, said he'd pay them back before anyone noticed. My swing stopped mid-motion. What? Mom and Dad covered it up, paid it off, told me it was better for everyone if I just let it go. She held out the USB, but I kept everything, every document, every threat, every tearful family meeting where they convinced me to stay quiet. I took the drive. Why are you showing me this now? Because I saw your face when you found out about the surgery fund. It was the same face I had 3 years ago. She finally looked at me, and because I'm tired of pretending we're the crazy ones. Back home, I plugged in the USB. Jillian's files were organized by date, going back 5 years. Each folder was a new betrayal, meticulously documented. My phone rang. Mum. Don't forget, dinner's at 7 tomorrow, she said without preamble. Wear something nice. Your brother has an announcement. I'll be there. And Olivia, try to be supportive. He's under a lot of pressure. I looked at my screen, at the folder marked Garrett's Promises. Don't worry, Mom, I'll give him exactly what he deserves. The next evening, I arrived at my parents' house wearing my best dress and my brightest smile. Garrett was already holding court in the living room. There's my favorite sister, he called out, arms wide. I thought Jillian was your favorite, I said, accepting his hug while slipping my phone into his jacket pocket on silent mode. You're both my favorites, he laughed. Hey, about that thing last week. No hard feelings, right? Business is looking up. I'll have everything sorted soon. Of course, I smiled. Water under the bridge. Mom beamed. See? I knew you'd understand. We gathered around the dining table, Garrett at the head like always. He clinked his glass. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, he started. Especially Olivia. I know things have been tense, but family always comes first, right? My phone vibrated in my purse, the signal that his phone had successfully synced to my laptop upstairs, downloading everything. To family, I raised my glass, catching Jillian's eye across the table. And, Garrett continued, I have amazing news. The Thompson Group is about to... His phone rang. He checked it, frowned, then excused himself. I counted the seconds. 3, 2, 1. What do you mean, evidence of fraud? His voice carried from the hallway. That's impossible. Who sent... No, Mr. Thompson. I can explain. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. What's happening? Dad stood up. I took another sip of wine. I think Garrett's about to learn something about karma. Jillian's hand found mine under the table and squeezed. Above us, my laptop continued downloading every email, text, and document from Garrett's phone. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be thorough. And I was just getting started. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the house. Garrett had locked himself in his office after the phone call, but the walls couldn't muffle his meltdown. Should someone check on him? Dad asked, pacing the living room. Mom wrung her hands. He just needs time to process. I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding. Another crash. Jillian flinched. Some misunderstanding, I muttered, loud enough for them to hear. This isn't helping, Olivia, Mom snapped. Your brother is in crisis. My brother is in trouble because he committed fraud. Don't use that word. She looked around like the FBI might be hiding behind the curtains. Garrett's office door flew open. He looked wild, tie askew, hair standing up where he'd been running his hands through it. It's over, he said, voice hollow. Thompson's lawyers are involved. They're talking about an audit. Mom rushed to him. We'll figure something out, we always do. Not this time. He looked straight at me. Someone sent them everything. Bank records, emails, recordings. Recordings? Dad's face went pale. Of me, at the poker games. Talking about... He swallowed hard. About how I move money around. Who would do such a thing? Mum demanded. I kept my face carefully neutral, but Garrett's eyes narrowed. You, he whispered. It was you. Prove it. He lunged forward, but Jillian stepped between us. Don't. You ruined everything, he shouted over her shoulder. Years of work destroyed because you couldn't wait a few months for your stupid surgery. Garrett! Dad's voice cracked like a whip. That's enough. No, it's not enough. He spun toward our father. Tell them what you did. The room went silent. Dad's face drained of color. Martin? Mom's voice was uncertain. What is he talking about? Dad sank into his armchair. I've been helping him. Monthly loans, covering margins. I thought I could keep it contained. How long? Mom whispered. 3 years, maybe 4. Jesus Christ, Jillian breathed. I had to. Dad's voice rose defensively. He needed help and I'm his father. And what am I? I asked quietly. Because you're my father too, but you gave him my surgery fund. He promised he'd replace it. Like he promised to pay back Jillian's art school money? Mom's head snapped up. What? Jillian stepped forward. The real reason I quit school. Garrett took out loans in my name. Dad paid them off to keep it quiet. I did it for the family, Dad shouted. No, I said. You did it for him. There's a difference. Garrett slumped against the wall. They're freezing my accounts. All of them. We'll remortgage the house, Mom said immediately. They'll trace that too, Jillian pointed out. Any large transfers will look suspicious now. This is all your fault, Mom hissed at me. If you just kept quiet. If I'd just died quietly, you mean? Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I laughed. I have the medical records, Mom, the specialist reports. The ones saying if I wait too long, the surgery might not even help anymore. But sure, I'm being dramatic. We can fix this, Dad said, but his voice shook. We just need to think. Think about what? I asked. How to protect Garrett again? How to sweep this under the rug like you did with Jillian? Like you've done my entire life? My phone buzzed. A text from Delilah. Xander's team found the forged medical loan. They're adding it to the case. I smiled. Actually, it's too late to think about anything. What did you do? Garrett's voice was deadly quiet. Me? Nothing. But karma. Karma's been taking notes all these years, and now it's calling in every debt. You little... He started toward me again, but this time Dad caught his arm. Don't make it worse, Dad warned. Worse? Garrett laughed hysterically. I'm about to lose everything and you're worried about making it worse? No, I said, heading for the door. You already lost everything. You just didn't notice because you were too busy spending it. Olivia, please, Mom called after me. We're family. I paused in the doorway. Funny how that only matters when he needs something. Outside, the night air felt clean, purifying. My phone buzzed again. Jillian, coming over later. We need to talk. One last text came through as I reached my car, this one from an unknown number. Ms. Ross, this is Xander Cooper's office. We'd like to discuss your brother's case. Please call us at your earliest convenience. I started the engine, watching my family's shadows move behind the living room curtains. They'd spend all night trying to save Garrett, just like always. But this time, there'd be no salvation, only consequences. You need to eat something, Samantha said, pushing a plate of toast across her kitchen counter. Revenge is exhausting work. I'd met Samantha at a chronic illness support group years ago. Now she was both my friend and my unofficial legal advisor. Her apartment had become my sanctuary over the past week. I'm not hungry, I said, staring at my phone. 27 missed calls from Mom. Eat anyway. You have a meeting with Xander's team in 2 hours. The toast tasted like cardboard, but I forced it down. What if I'm taking this too far? Are you having doubts? No, maybe. I don't know. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jillian. Mom's on her way to your apartment. She's pretty worked up. Perfect, I muttered. Just perfect. Go, Samantha said. Face her. You're stronger than you think. I made it home just as Mom was pulling into my parking spot. She got out of her car, designer handbag clutched like a shield. We need to talk, she announced, following me inside. About what? How Garrett's doing? How this is all my fault? Don't take that tone with me. She paced my small kitchen. Do you have any idea what you've done? Your father might lose his job if this gets out. We could lose the house. And I could lose my life without that surgery. Oh, please. She waved dismissively. The doctor said you have time. Some time, maybe, if I'm lucky. I leaned against the counter. But Garrett needed the money now, right? He's building something important. His company could change everything for this family. His company is a fraud, Mom, just like everything else about him. How dare you? She slammed her hand on the counter. After everything we've sacrificed for you, for me, I laughed. Name one thing you've sacrificed for me. The medical bills, the specialists, the endless appointments. Basic parental responsibilities aren't sacrifices. But you know what is? Jillian giving up her dreams, Dad risking his retirement, all of it to cover for Garrett's gambling. He's not gambling, he's... Stop lying, my voice cracked. Just stop. I have proof of everything. The poker games, the forged documents, the stolen investor funds. It's over. She sank into a kitchen chair. You'll thank us one day. When Garrett's company finally succeeds, it's never going to succeed. He's being investigated for fraud, actual criminal fraud. Then take it back, she pleaded. Tell them you made a mistake. Like you told me to mistake my pain for drama? To mistake his theft for investment? I'm your mother. No, I said quietly. You're his mother. I'm just the inconvenience you had to deal with. Her phone rang. She answered it, face paling as she listened. They're freezing our accounts, she whispered after hanging up. All of them. Martin says they're looking into his involvement. I know. Her head snapped up. What do you mean, you know? I told them everything, Mom. About Dad giving Garrett access to my fund, about the cover-ups, all of it. You'd destroy your own family? You destroyed it first. I'm just making sure everyone pays their fair share. She stood up, hands shaking. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm exactly who you made me, I said. Someone who learned that family means nothing when Garrett needs saving. He's your brother, and I'm your daughter. Funny how that never seemed to matter. She walked to the door, then turned back. When this is all over, don't expect us to forgive you. Don't worry, I smiled. I stopped expecting anything from you a long time ago. After she left, I checked my phone. A text from Delilah. Xander's team is ready. You sure about this? Another from Samantha. Remember, you're not the villain here. You're just the first one brave enough to tell the truth. And finally, one from Jillian. Mom just called crying. I'm still with you, sis, all the way. I looked at my reflection in the window. Mom was right about one thing. I wasn't the same person anymore. That quiet, compliant daughter died the day they stole her chance at healing. In her place stood someone stronger. Someone who understood that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is making sure everyone pays their debts. My phone buzzed one last time. Xander's office. Meeting in 30 minutes, bringing our full legal team. I grabbed my keys and the file of evidence I'd compiled. Time to show them exactly what happens when you mistake someone's silence for weakness. The pounding on my door started at 2 a.m. I knew it was Garrett before I even checked the peephole. I could smell the whiskey from inside. "Open the door," he slurred. "We need to talk." I pressed record on my phone before opening up. Garrett stumbled in, his expensive suit wrinkled, tie missing. "Look what you did," he gestured wildly. "Are you happy now?" "You're drunk, and you're a backstabbing little snake." He dropped onto my couch. "They're saying 5 years. 5 years if they can prove intent." "Sounds like they already have." He laughed, a hollow sound. "You know what's funny? I actually thought I could fix it. All of it. One big win, that's all I needed." "Is that what you told yourself when you took my surgery money?" "The surgery," he sneered. "Always about the surgery. Do you even want to live, or do you just like playing the victim?" The slap echoed through my apartment before I even realized I'd moved. Garrett touched his cheek, looking shocked. "Don't you dare," I whispered. "Don't you dare make this about me being dramatic. You stole my chance to get better." "I was trying to help the family." "By gambling? By fraud? By making something of myself?" He stood up, swaying. "Do you know what it's like? Being the one everyone expects to succeed?" "Poor Garrett," I said. "So burdened by all that support and privilege." "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand. I worked 3 jobs with a chronic illness to help build that surgery fund. I skipped college to save money. While you were playing poker with investor funds, I was counting pills and tracking symptoms. I never meant to get caught," I finished. "That's the only thing you never meant to do." He fell back onto the couch, head in his hands. "Please, you have to help me. Tell them you made a mistake." "Like you made a mistake with Jillian's loans or Dad's retirement fund? I'm your brother, and I'm your sister. Funny how that only matters when you need something." My phone buzzed. Delilah. "Xander found the offshore accounts. It's worse than we thought." Garrett saw the message preview and lunged for my phone. I stepped back. "You're working with Delilah." His face contorted. "That bitch never understood business. She understood enough to keep records." He dropped to his knees, grabbing my hands. "Please, Olivia. I'll do anything. I'll get your money back. I'll find a way." "Like you found a way to forge my signature on that medical loan?" He went still. "How did you—" "I know everything, Garrett. Every lie, every theft, every time Mom and Dad covered for you." I pulled my hands away. "It's over. They'll send me to prison. Probably. Mom and Dad will lose everything. They already did. They lost it backing you." He stood up suddenly, face dark. "You probably think you're so clever, the sick little sister, finally getting her revenge." "This isn't revenge," I said quietly. "This is consequences. You're just not used to facing them." "You smug little—" He moved toward me, fist raised. "Try it," I said, holding up my phone. "I've been recording since you arrived. Give me a reason to add assault to the charges." He froze, then deflated completely. "I'll be ruined. Now you know how it feels." My phone buzzed again. "Jillian. Police just left our house. Dad's being questioned tomorrow." Garrett saw the message and laughed bitterly. "Congratulations. You've destroyed the whole family." "No," I opened my door. "You did that. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." "You'll regret this," he said, stumbling toward the exit. "When you're alone and dying, you'll regret it." "I'm not dying, Garrett. Not anymore." I smiled. Delilah's friends at the private clinic found me a surgery slot. Turns out karma works both ways. The door closed behind him. I listened to his uneven footsteps fade down the hallway, then called Samantha. "He just left," I said. "Drunk, threatening. I recorded everything." "Good," she replied. "Send it to Xander's team. And Olivia, you did the right thing." "Then why does it hurt?" "Because you're nothing like him. That's why you'll heal, and he never will." I sent the recording, then looked at the family photo still hanging on my wall. Time to take it down. Some things needed to end for others to begin. My phone lit up one last time. The clinic. "Surgery scheduled for next month. Payment received from anonymous donor." I smiled, knowing exactly which former business partner had made that arrangement. Sometimes karma needs a little help evening the score. "He's trying to run," Delilah announced, bursting into my hospital room. "Xander's team caught him trying to access one of his hidden accounts." I was 3 days post-surgery, still groggy but healing. Jillian looked up from where she'd been reading beside my bed. "When?" she asked. "This morning. They've frozen everything now." Delilah checked her phone, including Mom's secret mortgage attempt. I shifted carefully against my pillows. She actually tried it? Behind Dad's back, yeah, would have lost the house within months. A nurse poked her head in. "Ms. Ross, your mother's here again." "Not today," Jillian said firmly. "Doctor's orders." We waited until the nurse left before Delilah continued. "Your father's cooperating with the investigation. Full confession about his involvement. And Mom, still in denial, keeps telling everyone it's all a misunderstanding." My phone lit up with a text. "Samantha. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Jillian grabbed the remote and flipped to the local station. There was Garrett being led out of his office in handcuffs. "Breaking news," the reporter announced. "Local entrepreneur arrested for investor fraud and embezzlement. Sources say the investigation began after evidence was provided by family members." "Holy shit," Jillian whispered. I watched my brother's face on screen. No more confident smile, no more golden boy charm, just a man who'd finally run out of second chances. "They're saying 3 to 5 years," Delilah said quietly. "Maybe more, depending on what they find in those offshore accounts." Another text from Samantha. "Your parents' house is being searched right now." Jillian's phone rang. "Mom." "Don't answer it," I said. "I have to." She stepped into the hallway. Delilah took her seat. "How are you feeling?" "Better, stronger." I touched my surgical site gently. "The doctor says it worked." "Good, because there's something else you should know." She hesitated. Xander wasn't just looking to bust Garrett. He was waiting for an excuse. "What do you mean?" "Garrett had dirt on some of Xander's less legal ventures. Was using it as leverage. You didn't just expose your brother, you gave Xander a way to neutralize a threat." I absorbed this. "So I was just a convenient weapon?" "You were the match that lit the fuse. But the bomb? That was all Garrett's making." Jillian returned, face pale. "Mom's on her way. She's not good." "Security's been notified," the nurse said from the doorway. "They won't let her up." 20 minutes later, we heard the commotion downstairs. Mom's voice carried through the building. "That's my daughter. I have a right to see her." My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "I'm sorry for everything. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry." "Ms. Ross?" A detective stood in my doorway. "We need to ask you a few more questions about the forged medical loan." "Now?" Jillian protested. "She just had surgery." "It's okay," I said. "I'm feeling strong enough." The detective sat down, notebook ready. "We found something interesting in your brother's office. A letter addressed to you, never sent. Would you like to read it?" I shook my head. Some things don't need to be read to be understood. More commotion from downstairs. Then silence. "They're escorting her out," Delilah reported, checking her phone. "She tried to make a scene in the lobby." Classic mom, Jillian muttered. The detective cleared his throat. About the loan. I have everything documented, I said. Every forged signature, every transferred amount. But you might want to ask my father about his part in it. We already have. He stood up. Thank you for your cooperation, and for what it's worth, you did the right thing. After he left, Jillian took my hand. You know they'll never forgive us. Some things aren't meant to be forgiven, I replied. Some things are just meant to be finished. My phone lit up one last time. A news alert. Local families fall from grace, a story of fraud, betrayal, and justice. Delilah read it over my shoulder. Want me to have them kill the story? No, I said. Let them run it. Some truths need to be heard. Through my window, I could see Mom's car being towed from the emergency lane. Dad's confession would be official by morning. Garrett was already in custody. You protected him, I whispered to the fading daylight. So now you'll fall with him. Jillian squeezed my hand. What happens now? I looked at my surgical site, at the promise of healing it represented. Now we learn how to live without their poison in our veins. Outside, sirens faded into the distance, carrying away the last pieces of my family's perfect facade. Sometimes karma doesn't just balance the scales, it shatters them completely, and I was finally okay with that. The last box, Jillian announced, setting it down in my new apartment. You're officially moved in. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a space that was all mine. No family photos, no guilt-laden memories, no echoes of Garrett's voice down the hall. It's perfect, I said, running my hand along the smooth kitchen counter. My phone buzzed. Samantha, Garrett's sentencing is tomorrow. You sure you don't want to be there? No need, I typed back. The verdict speaks for itself. Delilah arrived with lunch, spreading takeout containers across my new dining table. Have you seen the news? Your mother's interview is going viral. Let me guess. She's still claiming it's all a misunderstanding? Actually, no. Delilah pulled up the video. Watch. There was Mom, perfectly coiffed as always, but something was different. The steel in her spine had rusted. I failed them, she said to the reporter. All of them. I protected one child so much that I destroyed the others. And now... She looked directly at the camera. Now I've lost them all. I turned it off. Too little. Too late. Dad called this morning, Jillian said quietly. The house is being sold to pay restitution. Where will they go? Mom's sister offered them her guest house, temporary until they figure things out. My phone lit up again, a text from Dad. The doctors say your latest tests look good. The surgery worked. I know I have no right to be happy about that, but I am. I deleted it without responding. Speaking of good news, Delilah pulled out an envelope. Xander wanted you to have this. Inside was a check. My surgery fund, doubled. He says it's compensation for helping expose the fraud, Delilah explained. But really, I think he respects what you did. Standing up to family isn't easy. Neither is letting them fall, I said. A knock at the door made us all jump. Through the peephole, I saw a courier. Delivery for Olivia Ross? I signed for the package. Inside was a single envelope, prison postmark clear on the front. Garrett, Jillian breathed. There's something else, the courier said, bringing in a large flat package. I opened it first and froze. It was my old medical chart from childhood, the one that had hung opposite Garrett's trophy wall. But attached to it was a drawing I'd made when I was 7, stick figures of Garrett and me, holding hands with the words "best brother ever" in crayon. My hands shook as I opened his letter. Olivia, they say we have time to think in here. I've been thinking about that drawing you made. Remember how I hung it next to my first trophy? It stayed there for years, until my wins became more important than your love. I destroyed us, not you, not your revenge. Every choice I made, every lie I told, every time I put myself first, I was dismantling our family piece by piece. Don't read this as an attempt at reconciliation. Some things can't be fixed. Some trust can't be rebuilt. I understand that now. I just wanted you to know you weren't wrong about any of it. And I'm glad the surgery worked. Live well, little sister. Live better than I did. Garrett. I handed the letter to Jillian without a word. Are you okay? Delilah asked softly. I'm not sure. I walked to my windows, looking out at the city below. I thought revenge would feel more final. Maybe because it wasn't really about revenge, Jillian said, finishing the letter. It was about survival. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. This is Anne, your mother. I know you won't answer my calls, but I need you to know something. You were never the sick one. We were, and I'm so sorry we made you prove it. I placed the childhood drawing on my windowsill, letting the sun illuminate those innocent stick figures. What now? Jillian asked. Now? I touched my healing surgical site. Now we learn who we are without their shadows over us. Together? She held out her hand. Together. Delilah raised her takeout container like a toast. To new beginnings. No, I said, taking Jillian's hand. To truth, however much it costs. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, in this space that was mine alone, I finally felt something I'd never expected. Peace. Not because I'd won, not because they'd lost, but because for the first time in my life, I was breathing air that wasn't thick with lies. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness. Sometimes it's about finding the strength to walk away and keep walking.
The rain fell in soft, steady sheets as I stood at the edge of the driveway, watching movers carry in elegant furniture, polished wood, glass, and velvet into my sister Tiffany's new mansion. A wedding gift from our parents, the house was worth $3.5 million and sat nestled in one of Philadelphia's most elite neighborhoods. Meanwhile, I lived in a modest little apartment above the bookstore where I worked. It smelled of old paper and fresh coffee, and while I loved it, the leaky sink and creaky floorboards reminded me daily that I was barely getting by. Oh, isn't it perfect for them? My mom gushed, oblivious to the fact that I was getting soaked. She stood under a large umbrella, her voice bright with excitement. Tiffany and Alexander are going to be so happy here. And there's so much space for grandchildren. I forced a smile and nodded, even as my clothes clung to my skin from the rain. I thought about the wedding card I'd scraped together money to buy. No gift, just a card with carefully chosen words. It's beautiful, Mom, I said quietly. Tiffany appeared at the top of the steps, absolutely flawless in a tailored coat and designer heels, her sparkling engagement ring catching what little light filtered through the gray clouds. Frances, you finally made it, she called, her voice smooth and cheerful. So, what do you think of our starter home? Starter home. The words hit like a slap, as if a nearly $4 million mansion was just the beginning. It's lovely, I said, swallowing my bitterness. The perfect wedding present. She laughed, that familiar little laugh that always made me feel small. Oh, don't be jealous, Fairy. I'm sure you'll meet someone special too. Maybe one of those nice boys at the bookstore. My mom chimed in eagerly. You know, the Clark boy is still single. He's an accountant now, very stable career. I bit the inside of my cheek. I was 33 years old with a master's degree in literature and had been working quietly on my first novel. But to them, I was the daughter who had made all the wrong choices. The one who followed dreams instead of profit. The one who chose books over business, passion over practicality. I should go, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I've got a shift at the store. On a Saturday? Mom frowned, disappointed. Some of us work weekends, I said, already stepping away. Tiffany rolled her eyes. Still so dramatic, Fairy. This is why things are hard for you. You always make life more difficult than it has to be. You could have gone to business school. You had a full ride. You turned down the job at Dad's firm. 2. Honestly, sometimes I think you enjoy struggling. What they never understood was that their version of help always came with conditions, strings meant to tie me to a future that wasn't mine. Their support felt like golden handcuffs. Accepting meant becoming someone I wasn't. The bookstore is short-staffed, I said over my shoulder. I really do need the hours. Mom called out, at least take some leftovers. I hate thinking of you eating alone in that tiny apartment. But she didn't know that my small space was my safe haven. It was cozy and quiet, filled with stories, ideas, and freedom. It was where I could dream without being judged, write without compromise, and simply be myself. The next morning, I stopped at Stephen's corner store as I always did, for my morning coffee. Stephen, who'd run the place for decades and had become a bit of a grandfather figure to me, looked unusually excited. Francis, did you check your ticket? He asked, leaning over the counter with wide eyes. What ticket? I blinked, confused. Then I remembered the lottery ticket I bought 3 days ago. A silly little splurge with my last $10 when the jackpot had reached record numbers. I pulled the crumpled ticket from my wallet, shrugging.
No.
What were the numbers? Stephen's eyes twinkled. Check the news, sweetheart. With a sense of curiosity more than hope, I opened my phone and pulled up the lottery website. The winning numbers appeared on the screen. 10, 22, 6, 9, 12, 1, 11. I stared, then looked at my ticket, then back at the screen. My heart began to race. Stephen, I whispered, I think I won. He grinned from ear to ear. I know you did, honey. I watched the draw live last night. All 7 numbers. You just won $122 million. The world tilted. I had to grip the counter to steady myself. Sit. Stephen urged, guiding me to a chair. Take a breath before you pass out. This is huge, Francis. But you need to be smart. Don't go telling anyone yet. First, get a lawyer. Sign that ticket. And whatever you do, don't let this change the good in you. My fingers shook as I wrote my name on the back of the ticket. In the span of one night, everything had changed. But as I sat there, dazed in the corner store with coffee brewing in the background, I realized something important. Maybe I hadn't taken the easy road. Maybe I hadn't lived up to their expectations. But at that moment, I didn't regret a single choice. And this time, I'd make sure my next chapter was truly mine. I signed the back of the lottery ticket with a hand that was still trembling. Stephen, ever the calm and steady presence, gently took it from me and tucked it safely into his store's old metal safe. Then he handed me a glass of water and made sure I drank every drop, his eyes watching me with the kind of protective care only someone who truly cared could give. I called Amy, he said, referring to his daughter. She's a financial attorney, one of the best. She'll meet you in an hour and help you get everything done the right way. I nodded, still in shock. Everything felt like a dream, too big to grasp all at once. Stephen, what about my family? I whispered. He gave my shoulder a firm squeeze. We'll figure that out when the time comes. But right now, Francis, this is your moment. Don't let anyone take it from you. While I waited for Amy to arrive, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister Tiffany. Family brunch tomorrow to talk wedding plans. Wear something nice for once. And don't be late like always. I stared at the screen for a long moment, thinking of her mansion, her perfect life, and the endless stream of praise from our parents. For over 22 years, I'd been the forgotten daughter. The one they called impractical, the one they assumed would never amount to anything. But now I had $122 million reasons to prove they were wrong. I typed my reply slowly. Sorry, can't make it. I have something more important to do. And for the first time in a long while, that wasn't a lie. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Amy's office, signing the final documents to officially claim the money. She'd been incredible, smart, kind, and fiercely protective. With her help, we created trusts, opened investment accounts, and set up strong legal protections to keep my name as private as possible. This is the last step, Amy said, flipping through the thick folder of papers. Once we submit this, your name will become public record. Are you ready for that? I paused, thinking about how much had changed in just a few short weeks. I had quietly left my job at the bookstore, leaving behind a generous check for my manager to help cover a replacement. I'd bought a lovely, peaceful home in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing flashy, but it was mine. I'd even begun laying the foundation for my own publishing company, a dream I'd shelved for years. I wanted to give a platform to voices like mine, writers who were overlooked or underestimated. Yes, I said at last, with calm certainty. I'm ready. The very next morning, headlines exploded across Philadelphia. My name and photo were everywhere. Local writer wins $122 million lottery jackpot. Bookstore becomes multi-millionaire overnight. Frances Jones claims record-breaking prize. My phone practically vibrated off the table. Messages came in from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old classmates, distant cousins, even people who'd ignored me at family functions were suddenly desperate to reconnect. But the messages I had truly expected came last. Tiffany was first. OMG, Fairy, why didn't you tell us? Call me now. Then from my mother, Frances Elizabeth Jones. How could you hide something like this from your family? We're coming over right now. Where do you live? Finally, a message from Dad. Your mother is in a state. Call us immediately. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, made myself a cup of tea, and sat in my sunlit home office. Through the window, I could see the beginnings of the garden I planned to turn into a reading nook. Everything was still and golden in the morning light, and for a moment, peace wrapped itself around me like a blanket. Then the doorbell rang. I glanced at the screen on the security camera, another smart suggestion from Amy, and there they were. My parents and Tiffany stood on the porch. Tiffany looked like she'd walked off the cover of a magazine, while Mom kept adjusting her dress, visibly flustered. Dad had his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. I took a breath and opened the door. Frances, my mother exclaimed, rushing in without waiting for an invitation. We've been calling you nonstop. Why didn't you tell us? And how did you afford this house? The lottery money hasn't even been released yet. Hello, Mother, I said calmly. Would you like to come in? They followed me into the living room, their eyes scanning the elegant but cozy space. Shelves of books lined the walls. Art I loved hanging above a gently crackling fireplace. Everything here felt intentional, mine. Tiffany trailed her fingers along one of the shelves. Well, she said, her tone a little stiff. I guess now you can move into a better neighborhood. There's a cute colonial near our place for just $5 million. I'm happy here, I replied evenly. But thank you for your concern. Fairy darling, my mother said, sitting down and giving me a sugary smile. You have to understand our shock. This is a life-changing amount of money. You'll need guidance, real guidance. Your father knows several excellent financial advisors. I already have a team, I said, cutting her off gently but firmly. Everything is handled. They sat in silence for a moment, blinking, as if realizing for the first time that I wasn't asking for their help, that I had done this on my own. And maybe, just maybe, they couldn't control this version of me. It's Frances, not Fairy, I said, trying to stay calm. Tiffany rolled her eyes and snapped. Don't be difficult. We're trying to help. God knows you've never been great with money. Remember when I loaned you $22,000 for that little starter business? I looked at her quietly. You mean the money I asked for that you never paid back? Her face turned red. That was different. I needed it. What you needed, I said, standing up and keeping my voice steady, was to take responsibility. Something you've never really been expected to do. That was when my father finally spoke. His face had grown tense. Now see here, your mother and I have always supported you both equally. I actually laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. Equally? I repeated. You bought Tiffany a mansion as a wedding gift. You paid for her business school, bought her first car, covered her wedding, and helped her launch her own business. And what did I get for graduation? A lecture about choosing a more practical path. "We were worried about you," my mother cried. "Your choices were so unconventional. We just wanted. You wanted me to be like Tiffany," I finished for her. "The polished, proper daughter. The one who always did what you expected. Well, guess what? My so-called impractical choices led me here. My job at the bookstore, the one you all thought was beneath me, is where I bought the winning lottery ticket." Tiffany leaned forward like she was offering me some kind of gift. "And now you can finally live a real life. We can help you invest, get you connected with the right people, and bring you into our social circles." "No," I said simply. The room fell completely silent. "What do you mean no?" my father asked sharply, like he couldn't believe I was serious. I walked to my desk and picked up 4 envelopes I had prepared the night before. This moment wasn't spontaneous. I'd seen it coming. "Tiffany," I said, handing her the first envelope, "this is a cashier's check for $90,000. That covers the loan you gave me with interest. You can stop bringing it up now." Her mouth opened, but no words came out.
Mom.
"Dad." I handed them the second envelope. "This is a check for $30,000. That's the total of every contribution you've ever made to me, birthday gifts, tuition help, all of it. I've kept records." They stared at the envelope, stunned. "And this," I said, holding up the third envelope, "contains documents showing I've already launched my own publishing company, started a charitable foundation focused on literacy programs, and set up my finances with one of the best investment firms in the country." I looked them in the eye one by one. "I didn't need your guidance then, and I don't need it now. But we're family," my mother whispered, her voice cracking. "Yes, we are," I said softly. "And family should love without conditions. They should support your dreams, not try to force you to fit into theirs. They should celebrate who you are, not try to change you." I walked to the door and opened it. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my foundation's board. We're planning funding for new libraries in under-resourced communities." "You're making a mistake," my father said stiffly. "You need us." I smiled, the weight of years lifting off my shoulders.
No, Dad.
"You need me, and that's the real reason you're here." Tiffany stood up, her face tight with anger. "So what now? You think you're better than us because of some lucky numbers?" "No, Tiffany," I said, my voice steady and calm. "I always was. You just never took the time to see it." They turned to leave, but just before they reached the door, my mother paused. Her eyes filled with tears. "Frances, please. We made mistakes. We see that now. Can't we start over?" I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, I saw just how small they all seemed, how trapped they were in their narrow view of success and love. They'd built a world around status and approval, and I'd never belonged in it. "Maybe someday," I said quietly, "but not today." And then I closed the door behind them. I walked back to my office and sat at my desk, where the manuscript of my novel waited. It was a story about a girl who finds her voice in a world that keeps trying to silence her. We had just finished the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the room buzzing with energy. Literary agents mingled with journalists, sipping coffee and chatting about the future of storytelling. Nearby, children from our literacy program beamed with pride as they showed off their handmade books in a cozy display corner. Stephen stood beside me, his eyes shining with pride. "You should be proud of this, Frances," he said, smiling like a proud father. "You built something incredible, and you didn't waste a single cent on showing off." He was right. Sure, I could have spent my lottery winnings on a flashy skyscraper downtown, the kind with marble floors and glass walls. But instead, I chose to restore this beautiful, old building, a place with soul. A place that now felt like home to writers, readers, and dreamers alike. The money hadn't gone to vanity. It had gone to building something meaningful, education programs, grants for emerging authors, and a space where stories could grow. My phone buzzed. A message from Tiffany lit up the screen. "Saw your company in the business journal. Must be nice having everything handed to you. Bit of a rough time for us. Alexander lost his job. Maybe time you helped out your family." I sighed and deleted it without replying. Over the past several months, My family had tried every tactic: guilt, fake concern, subtle manipulation, even outright demands. Tiffany's starter mansion had become too small, Mom and Dad's country club dues were overdue, and Alexander's failed investments had dried up their savings. I had said no before, and I would keep saying no. Just then, a soft tug on my sleeve brought me back to the moment. "Miss Jones?" a small voice asked. It was Alice, one of the students from our literacy program. She clutched a notebook to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Will you read my story?" "Of course, Alice," I said, smiling warmly. I led her to a quiet corner and knelt to her level. "What's it about?" "It's about a girl who finds a magic pen," she whispered. "Everything she writes comes true, but she has to figure out what's really worth writing." I blinked, touched by the quiet wisdom in her voice. "That's beautiful," I said. "Really, Francis?" I looked up. My mother stood a few feet away, her posture stiff, her eyes uncertain. She looked out of place in the casual, joyful atmosphere. The months hadn't been kind to her. Her flawless appearance had dulled, and the weight of worry showed in the lines around her eyes. "This is a private event," I said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but I needed to talk to you." I turned to Alice. "Why don't you show your story to Miss Lauren? She's our children's book editor. I think she'd love it." Once Alice scampered off, I stood to face my mother. "Your father's company is collapsing," she said bluntly. "Tiffany's house is in foreclosure. Everything's falling apart, and you're here playing with children's stories." I felt heat rise in my chest. I stood tall. "Playing?"
Look around, Mom.
"Really look. These kids are discovering the power of their voices. Those authors over there, they're getting chances they never had before. This isn't playing. I'm building something that matters." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her interrupt. "You and Dad never believed in what I was doing. Not when I was writing my first short stories, not when I applied for that teaching fellowship, and certainly not when I invested my lottery winnings into this dream. You're not here because you care about any of this. You're here because you need something." She flinched, and for a moment, I saw pain in her eyes. "We're still your family," she said quietly. "Are you?" I asked, leading her to a wall lined with framed photographs, children reading aloud, authors holding their first published books, snapshots of community events and literacy milestones. Family celebrates each other's successes. Family asks about your dreams and your happiness, not just your wallet. When was the last time any of you asked about my novel? Or what I wanted? She looked down, silent. "I didn't change because of the lottery," I continued. "It just gave me the freedom to stop begging for approval I was never going to get." Tears welled up in her eyes. "We were wrong. I see that now. Can't you forgive us?" "I forgave you months ago," I said gently. "That's why I'm not angry anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to keep putting myself in a position to be hurt again." She opened her mouth to speak, but a sudden commotion at the entrance drew both our attention. Tiffany had arrived, flanked by Alexander and, unbelievably, my father. Their expressions were equal parts hope and calculation. I could see the plan in their eyes. They hadn't come to support me. They had come to ambush me at my company's launch. I sighed deeply. The past had come crashing into my present like an unwelcome storm. But this time I was ready, because this wasn't just a company. It was a purpose, a home for stories. And finally, I knew exactly where I stood. "We're desperate," Tiffany sobbed, mascara streaking down her cheeks, her voice cracking as her carefully polished image began to unravel. "Alexander lost everything in that investment scam. The bank is taking our house. And Daddy's company is going under. Please, Fairy, you have to help us." The room fell silent. Guests at our launch event tried to look away, pretending not to see the emotional storm playing out. But I felt every eye, every breath held in quiet anticipation. My family had turned my moment of celebration into a desperate plea for rescue. I looked at them, really looked. Dad, once full of authority and presence, now stood hollow and gray, the weight of failure slumped on his shoulders. Tiffany, always the picture of perfection, wore designer clothes that no longer masked her unraveling life. And Mom, she hovered between pride and panic, her eyes betraying the internal war between dignity and desperation. "No," I said softly but clearly. "I'm not giving you money." Dad's voice trembled. "Francis, please." But I wasn't finished. Instead, I pulled out my phone and tapped into a folder I had prepared weeks ago, just in case. "I won't give you a handout, but I will offer something better." I held up the screen. "Dad, this is White Financial Services. They're looking for experienced advisors who know the community. They've agreed to give you an interview for a senior position. No promises, but it's a real opportunity." I swiped to the next image. "Tiffany, the local art center is hiring a fundraising coordinator. You've always been good with people, organizing events, and creating buzz. They think you'd be great." And I agree. I turned one more page. "Alexander, my friend owns a construction company. They're looking for project managers. It's hard work, but it's honest, well-paid, and stable." Tiffany stared at me in disbelief. "You want us to work for other people? I want you to build something for yourselves, just like I did. To stop relying on titles, illusions, and borrowed money. To find out who you are underneath all that image." Dad stiffened. "And if we say no, then you'll find your way," I replied calmly. "But you won't get a cent from me just to keep living a lifestyle that left all of us empty." There was a long pause. Then, to my surprise, Mom spoke first. "The art center, they think Tiffany would be good at fundraising?" "Yes," I said, "because she's great at it, when she's not trying to impress everyone." Tiffany wiped at her smeared mascara, her hands shaking slightly. "I don't know who I am without the image. Without being the perfect daughter." I took her hand, our first physical connection in months. "Yes, you do. You're smart. You're driven. You've just forgotten that those things matter more than appearances. Use them for something that actually means something." Dad cleared his throat. "When's the interview?" "Tomorrow at 9, I said. "Don't wear the Rolex. Let them see your experience, not your ego." One by one, they nodded. Not excited, not thankful, but maybe, just maybe, thinking. As they turned to leave, Mom lingered for a moment. "Your company, it's incredible, Francis. I'm sorry we didn't see it before." "I know," I replied gently. "Maybe someday you'll see me, too." When they were finally gone, Stephen appeared at my side, his warm presence like a calm after the storm. "You okay, kiddo?" I looked around at the open, vibrant publishing space we'd built, at the conversations about new books and the soft laughter of children discovering their voices, at the walls lined with stories that were no longer silent. "You know what, Stephen?" I said, breathing in the moment.
"Yeah,
"I really am." Just then, Alice came running up, notebook in hand, beaming with excitement. "Miss Jones." "Miss Lauren loved my story," she shouted, bouncing with joy. She said maybe one day it could be a real book. I knelt beside her, smiling so wide it almost hurt. "Want to know a secret, Alice? Every real book starts with someone brave enough to write it. Just like you." That night, I curled up in my garden nook with a cup of tea, the soft light around me illuminating the pages of my unfinished novel. My phone buzzed with a message from Tiffany. "I have the interview tomorrow. Any advice?" I smiled and typed back. "Be yourself. Your real self." The lottery hadn't just given me millions. It had given me clarity. It gave me the chance to build something honest, to stop seeking approval and start living truthfully. And that kind of wealth, real, lasting, and entirely my own, was worth more than all the money in the world.